boy. Woo! We wait and we wait and we wait and we wait and we talk 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 all off season and we talk all week and we talk for months and months and months and months before that. Yes, all off season about these great matchups in college football and what is it going to look like. And I've got to say, how many times did it come out of my mouth with all the coverage that we did for the entire week on this game? How many times did it come out of my mouth? Man, I should play the lottery. 14-10. I just made up that score because I wanted to come up with a scenario of a Kyle McCord drive that had to end in a touchdown, so down by 4 at least, and then where the offense had not done much the entire night. And so I kept picking 14-10 as the score. And lo and behold, and we had a watch party. Hopefully you joined us. And if you want to see my reaction or just want to check out why anybody would watch a watch party after the fact, but I see that many of you do, and I appreciate it. And you do on other channels and so forth, because I see that response. Check it out. But I know that a lot of people were shoveling dirt on the grave early. I saw it all over the place, but Ohio State triumphs over Notre Dame 17-14. So we will take your calls. We'll get right to them after I have a brief synopsis of this game, not in terms of the nuts and bolts of who won what and why Ohio State won or why Notre Dame lost, but just in regards to Notre Dame being a fine football program and a fine football team. Marcus Freeman's doing a tremendous job. I think that's pretty obvious to see that this was a Notre Dame team that came to play in so many different ways. They were technically sound, fundamentally sound, were so good running the football, and they have a team that we will see against the likes of USC and Clemson in particular. They do have some interesting other games against Duke in particular, what they are made of and how they will play in different type settings in different type of games. So I don't want to say congratulations because there's no congratulations that go out to the losing team if they are as competitive and are the competitors that I believe them to be. They don't want a moral victory. And for Notre Dame fans, to a certain degree, this would be a moral victory because this team performed much better than its predecessors typically did. Not that they didn't have some close calls and play some really fine games against elite competition, but this was a much better Notre Dame performance than they typically displayed in this situation. But Kyle McCord and Ohio State pull through in the fourth quarter, and you saw it, so I'm not going to try to describe it. It was a remarkable comeback win to be able to, with that amount of time left, with only one timeout and roughly 1:20 left on the clock, to go 70 yards was pretty astonishing for that quarterback with that much on him against that defense. And for a quarterback who's never been in that situation before on that stage, that was pretty remarkable. So I know that I've heard a lot about Kyle McCord being an average quarterback. That's a bunch of complete crap. All right. You either have an agenda or you don't know football, or both. So let's get right to it. And we got to welcome in our guy.
Woo, baby. What a game.
It was a great game.
It was. You know what that proves? Maybe old school football can be entertaining, Mark. You know, you don't need 41-38. You know, you can have your old school 1980s, 1970s, 17-14 that you grew up watching when you were a young man back in Northeastern Ohio. And when I was a young man back in Northeastern Ohio, we can enjoy that brand of football. You know, I'm going to start with, first of all, I thought Notre Dame's defense, that secondary was really, really good. Mm-hmm. There was, you know, the one thing that I noticed is there was not a lot of separation out there. You know, and it would be interesting to see if a person goes back and watches the film on this, and this is where I'm going to give Notre Dame credit. I'm not like TTUN fans who never want to give the other team credit. It's just that we screwed up and, you know, your team is garbage and all that. And Ohio State doesn't beat teams 51-0. They suck, which is, you know, they are held to a false standard, Mark. Joel Klatt talked about this ad nauseum. If we would have beaten Bowling Green 31-6, we would have been taken to task, Mark. Let's just be real. We would have been. Is that a fair statement or is that an unfair statement?
Based on being an Ohio State fan for a long, long time, and especially in this Jim Tressel and then Urban Meyer era, I would say, yes, that is completely true based on the feedback that I see that Ohio State is supposed to kill teams.
Yes.
Yes.
Ohio State is supposed to win every game 59-0, like against Wisconsin in 2014. If they don't do that, they're garbage. People nitpick this team. And I get it, because Ohio State has been the standard. They've been the only team to ever accomplish anything on a national stage for the Midwest. They're the only team north of the Mason-Dixon line to win a national championship since the BCS era started, and they've done it twice. And that's a fact, and it's undisputable. It's tough to crack the code of the South, and we've done it twice. So, until another Midwestern team is going to do that, and we're still the only one to do that. I mean, that says something, Mark. They don't want to admit that or give us credit for that because they know they never can do that. But that's neither here nor there.
This is David unleashed tonight.
Well, you know what? I'm channeling my inner Ryan Day right now, Mark, is what I'm doing. I'm channeling my inner Ryan Day because, he was right to be pissed. First of all, you've got people calling saying that this is a 9-3 or 8-4 football team. They're waiting for the demise of Ohio State and for us to suck, because they say, well, you guys have been good for so long, so you're eventually going to have a down year and you're going to have a bad year. Basically, that's what they think. And that's a true statement.
Well, it is a true statement that Ohio State will eventually have a down year. I don't know if that's going to be next year, 5 years from now, 50 years from now, but it happens less frequently for Ohio State than any program in the country. Let's get that straight.
Right.
And it's not even debatable or close. I will argue anyone under the table into a fetal position about that. And yes, Ohio State is held to a different standard and has been not only the one to crack the code of the SEC and the Southern teams. We can throw Florida State and Clemson into that mix, the Southern teams, but also the only one that's put themselves in position other times. So they've played for the national championship 5 times in the last century here, and nobody else has even played for the national championship.
And I'd be the first to say that, do you want me to say Ohio State should have more national championships? I've said that for years, for the amount of talent that we've had, for producing more first-round draft picks than any other program in the history of college football. We should have more championships. I've said that. We've had some missed opportunities. I'll own up to that, and a lot of Ohio State fans would say that. But I just want to say in this game, I want to give Notre Dame credit. I want to say that, when a team plays a good game, they deserve credit. And, they played a great game. I thought their secondary proved to be really strong. As I said, I don't think the problem was McCord tonight. He had a couple of off throws. I'm not going to say he didn't. But at the same time, there was just not a lot of separation down there.
There was not enough separation. And, maybe I'll ask Zach Smith this the next time we have him on. And I don't see this just from Ohio State because they have the best wide receiver room in the country. I see this from all teams when they show the shot of the secondary. Like if they'll show there was a sack, what was going on with the receivers. And it seems like on a lot of these plays, receivers are just, I don't know if they know that they are so out of the play and not being considered to be a target in the play. They just kind of run down the field and cover themselves. You notice that a lot?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, some of it is also the play design and route concepts too, can be better. I will say that, and you know what, I'm going to question some of Dave's play calling in this game inside the 5. I thought that was very questionable. That jet sweep, which was just a terrible call. I'm sorry. I don't understand why he was running a jet sweep in that situation when you need 3 inches on 4th down. Now, to be fair, I think Notre Dame had their brain fart by trying to run a screen pass with 2 something left on a 2nd and 15. I'll acknowledge that. I mean, they had some clock management situation that they'll look back on in this game. I don't know if you thought, what did you think of both of those plays? They were debatable.
Well, the Ryan Day call was abysmal.
Yeah.
So the plays inside the 10-yard line, inside the 5-yard line near the end of the first half, those I was not happy with for a lot of different reasons. But if they were successful, then there could be an argument that they were well conceived. So, like I don't tend to jump on play calls more so from the standpoint of the obvious or from game situation, more or less the call than the game situation and making blunders in terms of game situations. But that end around, why you're giving the ball to a 180-pound wide receiver on a jet sweep,
right?
It's just, yes, if it's cute and it works, it could break, and he only needs 3 inches and all of that. But yeah, especially when you're in this day and age of being able to push the quarterback,
right?
Line up Mayan Williams to push
yeah.
Kyle McCord.
Push is now like legal, right? Is push now like? I mean, remember when I saw that play, I thought it was an illegal play. Now it's like the thing to do. And, I mean, what's the shortest distance between, 2 points? I mean, and especially when you only need like 3 inches. I mean, if Ohio State would have lost that game, they would have definitely looked back on that game. And I know both teams were. Ohio State dropped the touchdown in the first half. Abuka dropped the touchdown, more than atoned for it with some big plays, big catches on that last drive, of course. And, obviously that the play calling inside the 1 yard line, I would still debate that when we got stoned inside the 1 yard line. I know Notre Dame's going to debate some of their play calling on short yardage situations as well when they got stoned on the quarterback sneak. I guess it was early in the fourth quarter, although Ohio State made a nice play on that quarterback sneak, I thought. I will say this. I mean, I went into the season thinking this would be our third toughest game of the year. So I know the toughest games are still in front of us. My thing is I don't think that the problem with Ohio State was Kyle McCord. And I didn't think the problem with Ohio State was Kyle McCord coming into this game. My question was still the offensive line. And Notre Dame's defensive line did better than I thought they would. Although, Mark, if you look at it, we held up pretty well in pass pro. I was accurate on that statement.
Yeah, the pass protection was fine. So here are my issues on the game as a whole would be Ryan Day's decisions in the red zone, would be that the wide receivers, maybe the wide receiver room, I'll take a little shot at it, is not as elite or not by far the best as much as the billing would say that it is.
Right.
But based on what Kyle McCord did, not that he didn't make mistakes or have his issues, but considering the circumstances and the defense he was playing and being in that situation for the first time, now there was cause for concern that the defense allowed Notre Dame to trample them for 96 yards on a drive that they're trying to protect a lead, and they've got them buried inside the 5, and they just got manhandled up front for a couple drives. It to me looked like what Ohio State did to them in the fourth quarter last year.
Well, I mean, I'll say a few things about the defense, and I agree. The run defense got worn down in the second half, and I would say the other thing that's still a concern is the pass rush, and that was a big key to. I don't know what you saw in Notre Dame's third down conversions, but they seemed to convert a lot of them. Now they were in some third and manageable situations. That 3rd and 10 was a killer when it was 10-7, and they caught the tight end over the middle on that drive. I thought Knowles would have come up with some more blitzes on those 3rd and medium situations. The basic line is if you can't get there with 4, bring more. You gotta be able to get more. If you can't get there with your base 4, you got to bring more pressure. And, especially as they were moving the ball down the field, if you're going to blitz inside the 30, if they're already inside the 30, just sell out at that point, and try to get there, especially if it's 3rd and 3 and 3rd and 4. Now, if they're backed up, you don't want to necessarily sell out in that situation and give up a big play. But
philosophically, and I want to point out this comment because stupid comments like this annoy me, where I'm just making the point that the wide receiver room I would still rank as the best in the country, but maybe not as decisively over number 2 as without any flaws. So, of course, Connor's making a stupid comment here, like I've changed my mind or something. Anyway, like on one hand, this was irritating to me, but on the other hand, conceptually, it worked because Notre Dame didn't score a touchdown until at what point? Like 5 minutes left in the third quarter. But Sam Hartman had his, a field day, just guys just running and finding the soft spot in the zone, just hooking up and standing there and catching 7-yard passes.
Well,
that happened all night.
I mean, you could also say Ohio State played pretty good defense 20-20. I mean, do they not get any credit for their stops when Notre Dame got on the plus side of the field? I mean, if you're going to say they gave up plays, there was a game when we played the team up north last year, and we had 500 yards and we only got 23 points out of it. I kept on hearing, well, our defense was great in the red zone, and that's why we held you down in points. So you can't flip that around and say, we only give up 14 points. Maybe we made good stops inside the red zone to hold them to 14 points. I mean, you're going to say, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, no, our defense is just, we'll give up yards, but we tighten up in the red zone. And with us, well, you give up too many yards. Well, we tightened up in the red zone and only gave up 14 points. I mean, you still have to, take some positive out of that.
Well, yeah, the positive is giving up 14 points, and at that point, 0 points. So it worked. And again, it was annoying me to a certain degree because Notre Dame was stretching out these drives that was keeping the offense on the sideline. But at the same time, it worked over and over and over. Now they obviously broke through, but who's not going to take a 14-point defensive effort against Notre Dame? Nobody. Any team in the country would take that defensive effort. Any team in the country would sign up for giving up 14 points on the road at Notre Dame. And the play differential in the second half at one point was 30-8.
Right. I mean, the thing about it being is, I think that there are still, like I said, the pass rush is still a concern with me. The run defense, you can make a point after this game. Notre Dame is a good team. I mean, that's as good an offensive line as I think. I mean, Notre Dame has a lot of strengths. And I think they play well against Ohio State. Their secondary is strong, and their offensive line is very strong, and they have a solid quarterback. And I think that you put that all together, that's a top 10 football team. So legitimately, they beat a top 10 team on their field. No matter how you do that, there's never going to be any disgrace in doing that. If you win by 1 point at the buzzer, and you beat a top 10 team, and that's a legitimate top 10 team on their field, I don't know. There's still got to be credit for that. And you still,
I too also like the look of this type of game versus if it would have been 45-42, then I would have thought, well, this is exceptional that Kyle McCord has progressed this much to tear apart that good of a defense. And that would have been a overriding positive, but on the flip side would have been, well, this defense still isn't fixed and what's wrong with it. While after watching what McCord pulled off, no, he didn't light them up for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns or anything like that. But look what he pulled off in the final minute of that game. Plus he played well, and he's only going to get better, and the rapport with the receivers is only going to get better.
Yeah, that's the point is, does anybody say, well, in the next 4 weeks, he'll get worse? I don't think in the next 4 weeks or 4 games, he's going to get worse. I don't think all of a sudden he's going to start throwing 3 interceptions a game in the next 3 or 4 games and hit a wall. That's where I'm at right now. That's why I'm taking a lot of positivity out of this because number one, they're going to face some weaker teams until they get to Penn State, of course. Although I'll tell you what, Maryland's looking good. Are we talking up Maryland right now, Mark?
Yeah, we're talking up Maryland. but we're not talking up Maryland competing for a Big Ten championship, but we're talking them up as taking another step from where they've been the last few years and continue to get better and better and more legit
Yeah.
as a team that can tackle and hit and block and do all those things as well. Yeah.
I'll just say this: Northern football's looking good this year, Mark. It is. I mean, seriously. I mean, people have been trashing Northern football for a while, but a lot of the better teams right now are in this neck of the woods.
Well, it would be a better thing for my evaluation to be able to see them play against other teams. I don't know what to tell you. How do we make that evaluation?
Well, the South doesn't want to come up here and play football games, Mark.
Well, I understand that, but nobody's playing anybody anywhere.
I mean, we've had a few big games. I mean, credit Ohio State for doing the home and home with Notre Dame. I mean,
But they're playing Notre Dame. You're talking about Northern football. There's nobody from the Big Ten playing anybody from the SEC, and then a bunch of lousy teams played from the from the ACC and the Big Ten. Like, this isn't showing me anything in terms of that argument. Nothing.
Well, I mean, hey, listen. I mean, the SEC is not necessarily coming. I mean, the last time I remember, didn't Wisconsin play LSU at like Soldier Field like a few years back?
Lambeau.
Was at Lambeau.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's the only time I can remember in the last 10 years, Mark.
Oh, that a SEC team has Auburn went to Penn State.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah. Good call. Ago. That's right. Yeah. Good call. Good call.
Yeah, that's it. But who from the Big Ten is going down there? That's not happening either.
True. I mean, it's
They're
a fair
just not
point.
Playing.
Well, other than you could say Penn State last year did go to Auburn, so because they did the home and home.
And yeah, the Wisconsin LSU was a neutral site home and home of sorts.
That's true. How'd you do on picks today?
It's a good question. I think I did rather well, I believe.
Gosh, I
look at them.
I wish I would have bet that Penn State game. I told you could lock Iowa on a field by themselves for I don't know how long, and I don't think they could score 2 touchdowns. Against. I mean, wow.
I understand you told me, and I understand you turned out to be correct. And even our guy Steve Merrill said that his computer models did the Vegas point spread by 5 or 6 points in Penn State's direction, but Iowa doesn't typically do that.
Yeah, I mean, but it might have been a statement from Penn State. Defensively they do look really good.
I think it's both.
Yeah, that's true.
I think I was just when the game started and I had that game on another screen, it turned out to be egregiously worse than I thought. But how does Iowa score against Penn State? Well, the answer is they can't. And that was the question all week. And it was answered the way most of us thought. Like, I thought that they would score a little bit. I think you gave them 10.
I did give them 10. And that's what I'm saying. I'm giving them too much credit.
That's just, it can't even be stated how pathetic that is to get shut out in a college football game. And I know Penn State's really good, but to get shut out in a college football game.
Maybe Brian Ferentz will get more money in a contract extension.
So there's a 25-point drop in terms of his. He came into this game plus 16. No. He came into this game plus 10.
Yeah.
So he's now minus 15. Let's keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I think that Penn State does look pretty good, but we got to see it again. Still ramp up the competition, of course.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, good call on Florida State Clemson. I tell you what, I thought Clemson just blew the game.
Mm-hmm. I thought they did too.
I tell you what, that defensive touchdown totally flipped that game. And even after that, Clemson blew their chances. Dabo Swinney's clock management. I mean, are you serious? That was awful. Although I will say this too about Florida State. Jordan Travis didn't look right.
No, he didn't. And if you saw him hanging his left shoulder, he's got a bad left shoulder. That got hurt against Boston College. And I thought that was pretty noticeable. This is not a defense for Dabo Swinney because he did botch botched a few things. They botched him in unison. He's responsible, but Garrett Riley's play calling
Oh yeah, that's
down
true.
near the goal line with a kicker you just signed who's never kicked in a college game, let alone against Florida State in Death Valley.
Well,
And you're going to put the game on his leg.
2nd and 1 in the overtime, Mark.
Well, the second, so number one, yes, I'm not going to get on them for the defensive turnover that changed the game. So they're up by a touchdown. They've got the ball close to the red zone. They could go in by 10 or 14 points at that juncture of the game, and then they get blown up on the strip sack, and it goes the other way for the touchdown. Okay, that's not their fault. The back missed the blitz pickup, Phil Maffa. And so the what I'm blaming Dabo and / Garrett Riley for is, number one, they had the control of the game. Tie game, they're methodically driving the ball down the field. They get into the red zone. They get deep into the red zone, the 11, 12-yard line. They start calling these stupid gadget plays.
Yeah.
And they miss a field goal.
That's right.
And then the next time they get the ball, sure, the odds were stacked against them based on time to try to get in position to either kick a field goal or throw a reasonable Hail Mary to the end zone, but they completely botched that too. They should have been able to run 2 plays. They ran 0 plays. So they botched that. And then to your point, they get to overtime. Will Shipley just runs for 9.5 yards, and they're throwing this stupid screen pass. Yeah, they got out coached.
Yeah, it was bad. And but I will say this from Florida State. I'm glad they covered. They did cover, which was nice. So I'm going to take that.
Them to cover.
Well, yeah, but it was what was it, 2.5, 3? Yeah. So, yeah, I was happy to get my cover. Although I think somebody's going to clip Florida's. What do you think, Mark? You think my man Drake May maybe gets them, or somebody in the ACC is going to trip them up?
Well, I don't know if they play North Carolina.
Oh, that's right. Maybe they don't have NC.
I'd have to look. They play. Well,
I thought title game
was going to be better. They're not. I don't even know what happened with that North Carolina Pitt game.
You got a final on that one?
Yeah, I got too many people calling me. Anyway, and I'm not talking about friends and family. I'm talking about people that need their post-game shows set up and so forth. That's what's wrong with the way I've got all this set up. Anyway, I'm sorry for the distraction. So, yeah, I don't know what Florida State's schedule is off the top of my head exactly. I know they got Duke. I don't know if North Carolina beat Pitt. That game was like 14-all the last I saw.
Yeah, I do think, but you know what though? If Florida State only loses 1 game and wins the ACC, I still think they're going to be in good shape. They'd probably be in good shape to still make the playoff, though. Although I guess they might only have 1, maybe 2 decent wins at that particular point. But I would think it's
already beaten LSU and Clemson.
Yeah, we're going to see how quality of a win Clemson is, though. I think Clemson's going to lose another 2 games.
Well, regardless, if people can't respect that game that they saw today, then
yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a decent Clemson. I'm just wondering, this is not your older brother's Clemson team.
No, it's not. All right, David. Anything else?
Great night of football. Go Bucks. I'm sorry it upsets your largest fan base that we won tonight. Although I'm sure this is probably the first time they ever rooted for Notre Dame to win. But go Bucks. And
last year.
What's that?
At least since last year.
That's true. All right, Mark. Good show. By the way, how would the live stream go? Good job.
Yeah, sure. We watched a game. What can I say?
Bring it back sometime. Yeah, bring it back sometime. I like those live streams.
All right, David.
All right, take care, Mark. Go Bucks.
All right, let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. We got our JJ McCarthy guy here. I don't even know who to call you.
Hey, man, what's up? Let me say start with this, man. What's my name?
Yes.
Go Blue.
That's your name.
You could call me. You could call me Michigan Man B.
I feel very sorry for you that your father and mother did that to you.
Yeah, man. This is how it went, man. Look, man. Great win. Anytime you get a top 10 win on the road, great win. Kyle McCord, what's there to say, man? He came up when you needed him to. So there ain't much to say there. I gotta talk about Indy's. You guys are just bringing up the Clemson time management.
Yes.
I gotta talk about Indy's play calling.
Okay.
With under 3 minutes to go, Ohio State's got 2 timeouts. You tried to do. I don't know what he tried. Did they do a drop back? What did you see? What happened there on that first down? Was it a play action pass they tried to do? The sack?
Where Hartman got thrown down for about a 5-yard loss. I don't know.
Yeah, what
they
was
were trying
that?
to do. I don't know. I would like to see. This is where TV replays sometimes let me down. I want to see that again, and they didn't show it again. They're too busy showing coaches on the sideline and graphics. I don't know.
Yeah, because look, that was awful. Like, run the ball 3 times. There's under 3 minutes to go. You got Ohio State only has 2 timeouts. They get the ball back. They got the ball back, I believe, at what? With a minute 20 left, minute 30, something like that. If you run the ball 3 times, they might have like 30 seconds on the clock and no timeouts. So I mean, when we talk about like bad clock management, like that's up there.
Well, you have to understand that it's not as easy as that, because if you just run and punt the ball, then you're giving Ohio State 2.5 minutes left on the clock. So you have to decide. There's obvious clock situations in which you run because you're going to leave nothing left on the clock or next to nothing, and it's just a percentage play that you have to make. But there is a place somewhere in there where it's like, okay, you're somewhere caught between just conducting your offense because it's the middle of the game and you're just trying to score and move the ball, versus, you've won the game if you can just hang on to the ball. They weren't in that place. They needed first down to keep the ball. So you're not necessarily going to get a first down, just run.
Well, see, I'm gonna disagree here, because I get when they first got the ball, when Sam got that first down, I get that. But when they got that first down the second time and they did that where he got sacked for 5 yards, if you run the ball there 3 times or even 2 times instead of calling 3 consecutive pass plays, which is what they did, I mean, you're giving Ohio State the ball back with barely any time left and no timeouts. Even if you want to call a pass on 3rd down.
I don't believe they called 3 consecutive pass plays.
Well, I think what happened was when he got sacked for 5 yards, I think it was a play action. That's what it looked like to me. It looked like it was a play action.
So, or there was some kind of mix-up in the backfield. It was one or the other.
Yeah, it looked like a play action to me. So and then they called a screen pass, and then it was a 3rd down run, which got the last time out. Oh, so it was 2 consecutive pass plays. If you just run the ball on 1st down, make them spend their timeouts, run the ball on 2nd down, and then pass on 3rd down.
Well, I'm not saying
I don't see Ohio State winning the game.
I'm not saying you're completely wrong, because you could run for a first down. They did run for a first down before that.
That's the other thing. Ohio State could not stop the run in the middle at all, for the most part. So look, great win for Ohio State, but like ND's got to be heartbroken. Completely heartbroken. And if I'm a Notre Dame fan, I am frustrated with the play calling in that situation. Because one, they were able to save a timeout that one, and you gave a team with a lot of offensive weapons plenty of time with the timeout to win the game.
I don't know that Ohio State could not stop their running game. They couldn't stop it for 2 drives in the second half. They stopped it well before that.
I think they stopped it in spurts, is the way I would describe it. I think they had plenty of success peppered throughout of running the ball, and then there was moments where they did stop them at the line of scrimmage. But yeah, I mean, my main takeaway is it's a great win. But if I'm a Notre Dame fan, I'm heartbroken, because I know if that's Penn State or Michigan, well, maybe not Penn State because they like to do some crazy stuff. But that's Michigan. They're running the ball 3 times. They're letting Ohio State drive the field with 30, 40 seconds left, no timeouts. That's just smart football to me.
Absolutely, it is.
But yeah, no, it's a great win. And then I think your defense, they played well for the most part. There is a lack of pass rush. What's the DB's name The other one, not Burke. The other one,
Davison Igbignosen.
he's got to work on his grabbing, man.
Oh well, yeah, he's
It's
terrible at
kind
that.
of pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. But yeah, no, I guess my final thought is, if I'm Penn State and Michigan, they're licking their chops. I think they're licking their chops. I really do.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, they're not.
that's what I took away from it, because I feel
No,
like
they're
the
not.
Ohio State's offense isn't as explosive as it used to be.
Yeah. I don't think Penn State and Michigan are licking their chops. I know.
Oh man, I think they're licking their chops, man.
No.
They see Notre Dame run up the middle like that.
Well, Ohio State could have watched that Rutgers game today and seen a lot there to work with themselves. Are you kidding me? Rutgers is
Oh yeah,
moving the ball in
we could talk
close
about
to
the Michigan
red
game.
zone. It's 17-7, getting near the end of the third quarter.
Yeah, I mean, they were at like the 30 or 40-yard line. I don't know if that would have resulted in a touchdown. But I mean, outside of, if you want to talk about the Michigan game, outside of that first, I think it was the third play where they got that 67-yard touchdown. I mean, Michigan shut that offense down.
Well, I understand, but Rutgers doesn't score on anybody. If this is the typical Rutgers offense, well, they're not scoring against Ohio State either. They never do.
Yeah, no, I mean that's true. I mean, they've been decent at running the ball. Look, Rutgers is not a great offense. I agree, but I mean, to me, that game wasn't on the score. It was close for a little bit, but if we remember last year, Michigan was losing at halftime to Rutgers. They've struggled with Rutgers multiple times in the past 3-4 years. So this is actually probably one of the more dominant wins they've had against Rutgers, I would say, in a while. From start to finish. So I mean, I'm happy with the Michigan win. I got no problem with the Michigan win. I think the only problem I have with the Michigan win is Donovan Edwards. I don't know what's up with him. What do you think? Do you think he? What do you think about Donovan Edwards?
I saw him catch a swing pass for like 33 yards. That was a well-designed play, and I saw the final numbers, like 6 carries for 13 yards. I don't like.
Yeah, he can't run the ball,
watching
man.
Florida State and Clemson, so I wasn't necessarily like locked in on that game.
Yeah, keep an eye on that, because every other running back's been able to run the ball but him. I don't know what the issue is. I think the most significant thing I took out of the Michigan game was they made a change to tackle, hitting whiffed on a sack, and then they put Barnhart at right, Henderson at left, and that seemed like the best line play. I don't got much else, man. Like I said, I think Michigan and Penn State, they licking their chops. They can't wait. There was a lot of things I think that stylistically favors them. So, but
Could
great
be.
win though, man. Great
Could
win.
be. Thanks, man. Yeah. If Penn State and Michigan are licking their chops to get at Ohio State, that would be the first time in like the history of the programs that would be the case. But maybe. Rob, welcome into the show. What's going on tonight?
Well, I said I would be back, Mark, after the game. I'm a man of my word, even though it's a bit of a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But hey, congrats on the win. I think that was a tense game for all fan bases involved, or for both fan bases involved. In some cases, all fan bases, because you had equal measure of different fan bases rooting for either one of our teams, wanting to see both of us lose or win.
Yeah.
So no, hats off to Ohio State. That was a heck of a game, and it's very enjoyable. Although, yes, I will say the play calling, especially, I have to agree with the Michigan man there that Sam Hartman, when he kept the ball on the play action instead of handing it off to the running back. I don't know what the cross up there, there's obviously some confusion there, but either way, that wasn't a great play call there, and that hurt. But you can't. I think the biggest thing no one's talking about, or that I haven't heard, is what I'm worried about going forward as a Notre Dame fan is our kicking is not good. Like, Spencer Schrader might be jacked, but he is not reliable on field goals. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. Like, yeah, he's got a leg, but what good is a leg when you can kick it 60 yards, but you're inaccurate? So that was a 6-point swing right there. I mean, you guys made a field goal. You're 1 of 1, and we're 0 of 1 on our field goals. That was a 3-point swing right there. That could have been a tied game going into overtime if that was a difference. But it is a game of like what ifs, and we can't what if, because like, yeah, there was plays on both sides that were left out there on the field. It was just a heck of a game, and it's a shame someone had to lose. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a heck of a game. I came away from the first quarter thinking that they were just kind of feeling each other out. Nobody was obviously doing much on offense, but if anybody was, it was Notre Dame. They were able to get those underneath routes and move the ball between the 20s. But Ohio State was, obviously got a fourth down stop and got another stop somewhere on the field of a fourth down variety, if I remember correctly. And then I thought Ohio State outplayed them in the second quarter. And then obviously Notre Dame, after it got to be 10-zip, just put together two drives that was just classic Notre Dame offensive line taking charge. The backs were running hard. Hartman had to make some throws, but not many. And they just bullied Ohio State for two drives to take the lead, and that's when it looked like they were going to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great. Yeah, it's like you said, it was kind of like a boxing match. Everyone. It was no one was like really feeling like throwing the haymaker a little early on. But the defenses. I mean, I was amazed actually at how good Ohio State's defense was doing against the pass. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but like Hartman did not have like a massive night, and that's what I thought it would take for Notre Dame to win. Was Hartman was going to have to go off, and really neither quarterback had an amazing night statistically. Hartman had his flashes, and obviously McCord played great on that final drive, which is what you want your quarterback to do. I mean, clutch situations. And I can't, I'm not saying Hartman wasn't clutch, but yeah, that was some. I mean, that was an amazing last drive for Ohio State. Yeah, it's just it's one of those things where as a Notre Dame fan, you kind of you almost hate to give yourself hope because we've been down this road before. Like Ohio State's almost like our kryptonite. We just don't beat you guys. We don't play each other very often. It's like the ninth, no, like eighth or ninth time we've played or something like that.
Yeah, it's 6-2.
Yeah, so it's like if we never play you guys, which is kind of funny because we're so close geographically. But going back to Michigan man's comment about like other teams licking their chops to play Ohio State, you better be careful because I mean to me that was like that's going to be a hard game to top for the rest of the season. Like that's in my opinion like one of those all-time classic games, like going back to the USC Bush push game. Again another game that we lost heartbreakingly so. But that was like an all-time classic game. This one to me is like an all-time classic game. Could be. Depends on what both teams do the rest of the season. But I think if both teams play to their potential, they're going to do quite well going forward the rest of the year. So.
Yeah, it's another data point for trying to determine how good these teams are. But I can't imagine that we weren't watching two of the top 10 teams in the country. And maybe Ohio State's just a little bit better. Maybe. They obviously were just slightly by one play on this night. And there were a lot of coaches' decisions and other things. And you mentioned a missed field goal that played into that and whatever home field advantage adds up to. Sometimes I think it's a bit overplayed. They might have played the same game in Columbus. Who knows? Yeah. And Notre Dame's got, of course, the two big ones against USC and Clemson, but they also have some interesting games against Duke. And
Duke's going to be a lot tougher than a lot of people are saying. That's not going to be an easy game by any stretch.
No. And by me kind of laughing at the comment about that, Michigan and Penn State are licking their chops. I'm not saying that Ohio State's licking their chops to get it Penn State and Michigan. So I'm not laughing at that comment to flip it on its head. I'm just basically saying, I don't know why these teams would be kind of just thinking that they could just manhandle each other. I don't see it myself.
Well, I don't personally like, I mean, Michigan obviously has the 2 wins in a row on Ohio State. So, I mean, they have that little bit of bragging right recently, but before that, they'd lost how many years in a row? Like, I mean,
well, they had lost every game since 2011.
Yeah,
that was the year between Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer went 7-0. Jim Tressel went 9-1. So yeah, it was a 16-1 run. It was 16-2 with the one Luke Fickell year. So yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I haven't seen. I'm not saying Michigan isn't capable of beating Ohio State, but I mean, we haven't seen them really play anyone, and you could have said that about, like, in some extent, you could have said that about Notre Dame and Ohio State as well. But I mean, they just played each other tonight, and they were both top-ranked teams, and I think deservedly so. I think it's going to play out. We're going to see the rest of the season. Ohio State is not going to be an easy team to beat, and I think Notre Dame, the same thing. And yeah, you can definitely get upset with some of the play calling. I mean, Jared Parker for Notre Dame definitely left something to be desired on some calls, and I'm sure you guys would like to have some of those calls back as well. So I can't just sit here and say it's a one-sided thing
No.
with bad play calling. Although, yeah, I mean, when we got the ball back after that stop where we stonewalled you guys on the 4th and inches, that should have fired up the offense enough with decent play calling. We should have been able to have the game in hand at that point, but we kind of blew it.
And you ripped off an 11-yard run.
Yeah.
To get one of the first downs, and I thought, oh my goodness, if they get one more, then this one's pretty much sealed.
Yeah, and again, going back to Michigan, man, he's kind of right about that. I do think they should have just run the ball 3 straight times. I'm not saying we definitely would have got another first down or that we could have, but he's wrong on the time though. I think when we had the ball at that time, I think there was still like 2 minutes and 38 seconds or something.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean, it's not like we could have just like done 3 straight runs and took a knee.
No.
We had to get first downs and we just failed. So, but that, yeah, I mean, props again. I'm not one of those Notre Dame fans that was like talking mad crap. In fact, when Lou Holtz was saying that Ohio State was soft before the game, I started cringing. I'm like, no, man, don't do this. Like, and look, yeah, I love Lou Holtz, but no.
I heard that he said something, but I didn't know what it was. And I have great respect for Lou Holtz in terms of his coaching career, but in terms of his career as a commentator, my goodness, he needed to be put out to pasture like 15 years ago when he was on ESPN. I can only imagine what he has to say now. So Lou Holtz, in terms of what he has to say, completely is off my radar. So I was not going to try to dig up what Lou Holtz had to say, because the guy, when he was at ESPN, would never pick Notre Dame to lose a game. So,
right.
And I get that. I understand he's
a homer,
his allegiance, but
yeah,
he never knew what was going on. So
no, it was cringe. And, that was one of those things where it's like, why give another team any kind of ammunition? Like, just keep quiet, let the games play out, let the players go at it. And look, props to both teams and players, man. I think I'm super proud of, like, not only Notre Dame, but like Ohio State showed a lot of courage at the end of the game too. I mean, I think both teams should be commended. And like you said, there's no moral victories in a loss. But I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to find a better football game in college football for the rest of the year. I mean, that was a heck of a game.
It was a heck of a game, and a lot of people that watch sports just tend to be too critical, and the losers, obviously, they're a loser, and all the accolades go to the winner, and otherwise you're a loser, you didn't win, and the kind of the gold medal mentality we have in this country of, anybody that doesn't win the national championship is garbage. And I just hate to hear that. So, I applaud both teams when it comes to the effort. Either team obviously could have won the game. So none of those players should be at all. I totally understand being upset about losing that game, but they shouldn't be ashamed in any such way, any Notre Dame player, for losing that game.
Yeah, and I will say this. I mean, the funny thing about this game is that it did not play out the way I thought it would. I mean, I really thought that this was going to be a bit of I thought there was going to be a lot more offense in this game, but both defenses really showed up tonight. And it was fun. I mean, it was kind of a nice change of pace, because I think, Notre Dame was scoring over 40 points a game, again, on inferior competition. And Ohio State was doing good. And then they had that, 60-plus point game. So, I mean, I thought going into this game that there was going to be more offensive, yardage going on, but it was kind of refreshing to see more of a smash mouth old school football game with two really good teams, two good defenses, and some great like matchups with like Notre Dame's offensive line against Ohio State's defensive line, Ohio State's skill position players. I mean, it was awesome to watch. Yeah, it's going to be interesting seeing what both teams do going down the stretch. Obviously, Ohio State's going to have a big boost in confidence going forward. Not that they needed one, but I mean, this is a big win for them. And of course, Notre Dame's going to have that chip on their shoulder of all right, we got to pick ourselves back up and go out and just keep our focus and not take these other teams for granted.
Good stuff, Rob. Anything else?
I got one more thing to say, and
Sure.
I'm not going to dog on the Colorado players or coaches or Deion Sanders, but I am kind of glad that they lost tonight and lost big, because now all the casuals that were out there, I was talking to some people before the game saying that Colorado was going to steamroll Oregon and that they're just national title contenders. And I'm like, please watch football and understand how college football works before you say stupid stuff like that. So that's a shout out for all the Colorado, not the fans, but the bandwagon fans and the media. The media.
Yes. And just to kind of play and extend off of that, for anybody that gets involved in college football and is drawn to the sport in whatever way that is, and in whatever personality or player or team or program or event caused that to happen, that's awesome. But do not come into the sport and think that you know anything about it if you don't. Just keep your mouth shut, enjoy it, learn, and make reasonable statements. But yeah, that's kind of the negative of something, that kind of phenomena, that I kept hearing that comment made today about this is a phenomena, and I kind of got a bit dragged into the mire of nauseousness early in that game before it got out of hand, hearing from Joe Tessitore and others talk about, just how this has taken over the sports world and society and all this other stuff. And it's like, okay, calm down.
I will say one last thing before I go. I will say props to Deion for how he handled the post-game interview. I thought he handled it with class. And again, I have nothing against Deion or the Colorado players or the true Colorado fans, but hey, the media can suck it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Appreciate you being here, Rob.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good one. Thanks
for calling. Yeah, I did not hear Deion after the game. I did have somebody text me and say that, and this is an individual that doesn't necessarily like Deion much, doesn't know a whole lot about him, but anyway, and said that they heard Deion's post-game comments again, which I did not hear, but they were extremely impressed with what he had to say. I posted a video today. I posted a video this week, and it this is just the nature of what we are doing here at the Voice of College Football and at other stops on social media and so forth, that, anytime you're not on the bandwagon of something like this, then you're a hater. I hate that term. I'm a hater of that term. You're a hater. You pick a team not to win a game. You pick them to lose, like you make predictions and you're picking a team to lose. You're a hater. It's the stupidest thing imaginable. And then there were some people that actually took it to another level in terms of their criticism of me, of one of the Deion Sanders Colorado videos that I posted this week, and called me a certain term that I'm sure you could all fill in the blank, that is just a throwaway term now in society, that if you want to, really, really hammer somebody about something, that even if that particular conversation and topic has nothing to do with that horrible label, they still just throw it at you. And it starts with an R, of course. And so that's what I was, and am, of course. Even though the video that I posted about Colorado football was overwhelmingly positive. And then I followed up because I thought it was just a classy move of Deion to speak about the Colorado State player who was being given death threats, which is complete lunacy and idiocy out of people, of course. And so I thought that was tremendous that Deion Sanders came out and spoke against that in support of that particular player, to say, we forgive him. Travis Hunter forgives him. We don't even need to forgive him because he just made a football play. Sure, it was a late hit, whatever Deion had to say. And I watched it, thought it was a class thing for Deion to do. But of course, that wasn't enough to make up for, not that I was trying to make up for my previous video, because the previous video was just basically, people don't listen, for one thing, or they're unintelligible. They can't interpret correctly. So they see titles. And I just thought it was fun. Colorado Circus goes to Oregon. Okay. People go crazy about that term and it's just appalling and disgusting what people stoop to criticize other people. All right. Anyway, got Slim Shady Canes here. What's going on tonight?
I'm great, Mark. You know what I do in those situations when people say that about me? I just tell them I've been called worse things by better people.
Yeah, well, I have other ways to handle it, but yeah, that's a good line. That's definitely a good line.
Well, today's slate sure lived up to its billing, at least in my opinion, it did.
Yeah, pretty much. Most of them.
Yeah. Now, there were a couple I didn't expect. I didn't expect LSU and Arkansas to get in that slugfest that they did.
Yeah, I did not see any of that game. Just kept up with the score, and I guess LSU kicked a field goal right at the end of the game, right?
They did, yes,
Yeah.
sir. I didn't expect Pittsburgh to give North Carolina the problems that they did. Now, obviously, the final score doesn't really reflect it, but I mean, that was a game for 3 quarters that I did not see coming.
Yeah, and that's conventional wisdom because Pitt's been so bad, but that didn't surprise me just because that's kind of college football. And I did expect Pitt to be a much better team this year. And sometimes teams go through bad stretches and maybe never totally recover, but then pop up with games that are more indicative of who they were supposed to be. So I was kind of expecting Pitt, especially at home, to play that kind of game.
Yeah. I got a couple of Georgia Tech friends on YouTube, so I got to, shout out their win against Wake Forest. I actually had Georgia Tech pick to lose that. I like what Brent Key's doing there. You're definitely seeing the kind of fight out of the team that you saw in the Paul Johnson days, especially compared to Jeff Collins. It's not just the rollover and lay down Georgia Tech that we've seen for the past 4 or 5 years.
And what was amazing about it, Slim Shady, is it was instant. As soon as Brent Keyes took over, they started competing and fighting and playing good games against decent opponents.
Yeah, well, and I'll be honest, last year when that happened, I kind of attributed it to what you see a lot. Like you saw Nebraska do the same thing. Scott Frost got fired, and all of a sudden they won a couple of games that people didn't think they were going to. So that's what I attributed it to last year. But seeing it roll over into this year, maybe it's something else at Georgia Tech. I ain't gonna talk about the Miami game. That basically went how I thought it was going to.
But it's going to feel good to win games like that now this season where you're taking out opponents the way you should.
Yeah, well, and I'll say this too. I haven't seen, even when Rhett Lashley was the offensive coordinator, we weren't scoring like this consistently. You'd probably have to go back to when James Coley was the offensive coordinator when Al Golden was there. Because they've scored at least 38 points in every game so far.
Yeah, I know it's been really good to see that that they have thrown it together this well. That Miami of Ohio team is really not that bad. They turned around and put up 31 and beat Cincinnati the next week.
Right.
A Cincinnati team that beat Pitt, a Cincinnati team that hung fairly close to Oklahoma today.
They did. They were more in that game than I thought they were going to be because you want to talk about a year 2 turnaround. Brent Venables down there in Oklahoma has definitely caught people's attention.
Well, he's doing what he was paid to do and hired to do, and that's maintain the Oklahoma tradition. And last year was a bit rough to watch, especially on the defensive side. And I got to say, I took my shots at Brent Venables. Not that I questioned his defensive status as being one of the great coordinators and gurus of defensive football, but it kind of surprised me that he would be and his team would be that atrocious on that side of the ball last year, that he wouldn't improve it.
Well, I kind of expected it because, like, okay, Ohio State playing bad on defense for a few years was not Oklahoma. Theirs was, well, they needed to bring in a better play caller and bring in a different system and utilize the talent better that they had at Ohio State. The problem with the defense at Oklahoma was there was no talent.
Well, sure, but this was the way I looked at it. That if you're one of the best defensive minds in college football and you take over a marginal to bad defense with pretty bad personnel, you should at least be able to figure out ways to improve that situation. And they got worse last year. So that just surprised me. And it didn't take away from what I believe of Brent Venables, but I had to criticize him for that. That's what I do because I thought that was a questionable coaching job last year.
Well, I just attributed it to the best of my knowledge, he's never been a head coach before. So
true.
I kind of I look at, especially in that situation when somebody's never been a head coach, I just look at year one as a wash.
Well,
I mean,
sure, and I get that, but transitioning that type of scenario to your guy, I was taking the same shots at Mario Cristobal in that I was thinking, okay, I'm not saying that this guy can't coach. He's proven that he can coach. He's certainly proven to be a recruiter, and he took over an Oregon program and he elevated the program. He had some questionable games in there, but still, he had a good run at Oregon. So I know he can coach, but I criticized his coaching job last year, thinking I understand that. I talk to Cam Underwood all the time, and he explains it that he's taking down the building and he's gutting it to the bare bones. But why? He's taken over a program that's got a top 15 to 20 roster. Why do they have to take 50 steps back before they can start moving forward? That's what I didn't understand about Miami's lack of progress and how poorly they played last year.
Right. And me and Cam, as you know, have disagreed on this. Me personally, I attribute that to, and granted, there's no real way to prove it, but there's no real way to disprove it either. When you have Mario was head coach number 6 in 18 years. There was a huge culture problem there, and I think we saw it last year, and that's why you had so many people leave. And I think that's what had to be done.
Yeah.
I think, like, I looked at Manny Diaz as a mistake when he was hired, but also a mistake when he was fired. I don't think he ever should have been hired, but once you hire him, you have to give him the time, number one, to learn how to be a head coach. And then number two, to kind of right the ship, because Mark Richt wasn't even there long enough to completely right the ship. I mean, his time was obviously cut short because of the diagnosis. But,
yeah.
And then I also think, looking at the way things went, and how Manny handled things, like Manny wanted, I'll use this analogy. Manny wanted to be the cool parent. And Mario is, well, dad's come home from deployment and now things are going to be this way. Two very, very different philosophies. Two very, very different ways of working. And they kind of had to go through the bumps and bruises of it last year. And then it also didn't help that, like happens to teams in some years, they got hit with the injury bug. You don't lose 6 offensive linemen and expect your offense to work very well.
Absolutely.
But one more thing before I go,
Yep.
And I haven't heard anybody chime in on this. What happened on that Ohio State touchdown play? Notre Dame only had 10 men on the field.
The very last play of the game, I don't know that I had not heard that from anyone.
Yes, Notre Dame only had 10 men on the field. The one they were missing was the right end, right to the side that they ran to.
Oh, okay. So I had muted it and was, setting this up, and I saw that they were counting players. So yeah, I didn't have a chance to look into that. I don't know.
Yep, that's Notre Dame only had 10 men on the field after a timeout.
Yeah, that's a screw up for sure.
That's ugly. But
All
hey,
right, Slim
good win
Shady.
for Ohio State.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you calling, man.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a good one.
You too. All right, let's get to these super chats here. We got the USC's in a tussle with Arizona State, surprisingly, 21-13. That Arizona State team has been dismal, awful, shut out by Fresno State last week, down to their four-string quarterback, and all sorts of injuries all over the field, but hanging with USC. Brian, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. 1st and 10, Notre Dame had the ball with 2:38 left, and Ohio State had one timeout. If they just run the ball 3 times there, Ohio State gets the ball back. No timeouts, under 40 seconds. I'd have to go play by play with the 45 second content. If you do the 35-second play clock, and then the first, they're going to run a play at 2:38, and Ohio State's going to call a timeout. So it's going to be at 2:30, let's say, and Ohio State exhausts its timeout at 2nd and 10, 2nd and whatever. And let's say Ohio State gets the 3 and out. Yeah, then the next play, the clock's going to run because it's still over 2 minutes. So they're going to get it down to about $1.50. And then it's going to be 3rd down, but the clock's going to stop. Well, not if they don't get a 1st down, of course. So yeah, something like that. I think they're going to be at about 145 or 150, run the play, kick. And yeah, it's going to be more in the 50 or 55 second range. But it's a point well taken for sure. Yeah, that's the conventional wisdom. That's what you do. But they thought they could throw it once, and they did, of course, open it up to move the ball with 4.5 minutes or so left. I'd have to go through the play-by-play because it's a blur to me at this point. But thank you for that, Brian. Texas Buckeye 1953, smash the like gang. Yes, we've got about 175 people here. So we probably had 400 people come through. So we should have 400 likes, I would hope. Sean, eat your heart out, 1966. Okay. Much love from a Buckeye in the heart of South Bend. Hope you are all getting along. Sean called us last night, let us know that he was going to the game with some of his Notre Dame friends. And so I kind of questioned that. But Sean, we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for checking in. Regarded if today's outcomes. I love all of you, regardless of you degenerate allegiances. Okay. Maybe some typos there along the way. But Sean, thank you so much for that. I think we got your point. Andrew, thank you so much for the super chat. Is McCord Craig Krenzel 2.0? I don't know. I'm guessing, Andrew, that you are old enough to have seen Craig Krenzel play. I would not in any way make those comparisons. I don't think Craig Krenzel was a 5-star coming out of high school. I, in fact, know that he was not. Daniel, hats off to Notre Dame. But, yes, it's been since 1936. Now, they don't necessarily play every year or anything close to it, of course. But Ohio State has defeated Notre Dame 6 consecutive times. So thank you for that, Daniel, and congratulations to you and your team. Mike 3883, Bowling Green is weak. Go win a real game. Go Bucks. There we go. Thank you for that. Texas Buckeye 1953 super sticker. Thank you so much for that, Texas Buckeye. We appreciate your support here at the Voice of College Football. And we've got Will checking in with, yes, sorry, Will. That must have been excruciating because I will put myself in your place having lost that many games big games to good teams, great teams, elite teams. Even if this particular Ohio State team is not great, we know the program's elite. And when I was your age, yes, I used to take these. I used to just take these losses just in excruciating fashion. At my age now, there's just way too much going on in life and too many important things to get too worked up over it. But yes, at your age, Will, I would have been devastated and was many times. Payne will do the post-game show, but might not call in for a while. This one really hurts. Hats off to Kyle McCord. Whole team played their hearts out. Class act, Will. Thank you so much for your contribution. That's very nice of you, sir. All right, let's get to the lines. We got Matthew checking in. Matthew, what's going on tonight?
Nothing much, Mark. I had to tune in to that Ohio State Notre Dame game at the end because Texas was skull dragging Baylor that whole game. They could have put up 70 if they wanted to. Baylor's atrocious. But let's start out. This is just a fun day of college football. I am watching, in my opinion, the team that's been the most consistent this whole year right now, Washington, go up and down the field, killing Cal 45-12 at halftime. So,
yeah, I want to see Cal or Washington actually play a living, breathing team.
I do agree with that, Mark, but other teams aren't doing this week in and week out, even if versus competition. True. They're not. So I would do agree with you, but it's Michael Penix. Woo. That's one of the things I want to start out with. 3 out of however many decide to vote on of the top 5, 6, whatever it is, Heisman guys are going to be from the Pac-12. It's going to be Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, and Michael Penix all sitting in New York. I really believe that.
Okay.
Also, so we talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I just want to keep kind of updating it and see if you've changed. How many teams now do you think can win the national championship? Because I said 9 or 10 at the beginning of the season. And I think there might be just that many, maybe even more. I think this would be like the most perfect year for a 12-team playoff. I think it'd be the most exciting year ever for a 12-team playoff.
Yeah, these results are backing up your claim. I was just basically stating that based on everything that's happened in the last 10 years plus, until I see differently in important games, and we're starting to see that. But yeah, Florida State's a national championship contender, and they can be taken to overtime by Clemson, who doesn't appear to be that good. And Clemson probably should have won the game. Yeah, we'll see if there's separation in the playoff.
I mean, I just don't see it because I don't see the quarterback play other than like a Caleb Williams. But again, they don't have the defense. That's the only issue. The really good teams that I'm seeing with the quarterbacks, like Washington, like you said, they haven't played anyone yet. I want to see how their offense will be good, but I want to see how their defense is versus good, capable offenses. That's the thing to me is like Ohio State. Kyle McCord, he's good. He's not great. I don't think he's ever going to be great. I don't think he's ever going to be CJ Stroud. I like Quinn Ewers, but I don't know if he can do it consistently enough for Texas to where we're going to be able to kill teams that have separation. I just don't see that. I think next week scares me. Jalen Daniels is very good. Kansas should be ranked. I think they will be. I don't know if they'll be ranked in your top 25, but in the people, I would expect them to be ranked. So that'll be interesting. And also the Slim Shady Kansas, I didn't want to make that point. He said Oklahoma. Talk about not playing anyone. Oklahoma's played nobody, and they haven't looked good in any of those games. So other than Arkansas State, who is literally the worst Division I college football team, the worst. So no, right now, let's just get your opinion on this. What do you think Texas, if they played next week, they'll play in 2 weeks. What would Texas be favored by Oklahoma and Dallas?
What are they going to be favored by? They're going to be favored by, what were they favored by today?
17, I think is what it closed at.
Yeah.
And that was on the road.
They're going to be favored by 13.
I would agree. I unless something happens, like Quinn Ewers gets hurt or our defense just goes to like absolute crap, which I don't see happening, Oklahoma's going to have a hard time. They really are. They don't have anything to stretch the field. And if Cincinnati's defensive line, which is good, gives you trouble, Texas has a top 3 defensive line in college football. I will put that on record. They are fantastic. They go 6, 7, 8, maybe deep. The only issue is our back end. I don't like our back end at all. But Speed there is not very good. But overall, did you watch the Ole Miss Alabama game at all? I'm assuming you did.
I had it on. I was keeping an eye on it.
I thought they did a great job using Milrow. That's what I want to get your opinion on, because they actually decided, oh, we're going to actually run the ball with him.
Well, yeah. Now it didn't cash in for quite a while,
Yeah.
but they played to their strength. Their defense gave up an early touchdown, and then, man, their defense really clamped down. So they figured out what kind of game it was going to be, and that they wouldn't need to do much in the passing game. He did throw a nice ball to
Jalen Hale.
Hale in the back of the end zone. But yeah, from what I remember, he did throw the bad pick in the first half. I don't know what they were trying to do there, but they can only hide him so much, but they utilized him about as well as they could. I don't know what his rushing numbers were. I saw him break off a few nice runs.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't running the offense that they ran versus Texas. This is not what I expect them to run versus us, honestly. So good on Tommy Rees for changing it up. And their defense is good enough to win a national championship. I don't know if their offense ever will be, but their defense is very good. I mean, I think it's up there in the elite category with, I think Ohio State has a very good defense. I think Penn State obviously has a very good defense. I think Michigan has good defense. I think Texas has good defense. And I think Alabama has good defense. Those are probably the best five defenses I've seen so far this year. Just based off competition too. It's hard to tell when some of these other teams haven't really played anyone. But
he went 17 of 21 for 225 yards.
That's not terrible. There are some plays you can tell, Mark, where he just, like, as soon as he catches that ball, he knows exactly where he wants to go with it as soon as he gets. If he switches that up, he has the athleticism. Yeah, he has a great arm, like a legitimately great arm. He can be a good quarterback. So it's just these little tweaks. And if he can make those during the season, Alabama will easily win the West, because the West, I don't know, A&M, that's what you're doing versus a team that doesn't have a quarterback. That's what you're doing. I mean,
they did win the game easily.
They did, but can you score 30? Can you score 30? That's why you got Bobby Petrino. Score some damn points. It frustrates me watching them. It really does. You have
their
talent.
defense scored points.
Yeah, I know. Their defense is good. Their defense has been good. They recruit very well on that side. They recruit well on the offense side, but they don't show it. Evan Stewart should be getting way more love than he does, but they're just not able to do it. And then talk about a team that is a disaster, Texas Tech. Texas Tech, all that offseason talk, and you lose to West Virginia. You lose to West Virginia is definitely not the worst team in the Big 12. It's been a disappointing year, honestly, for Texas Tech so far. And right now, Mark, who's the second best team in the Big 12? Oklahoma, I guess.
I hope not, for the Big 12's sake. There might be an ugly championship game if that's the case. I want to see more out of Kansas State.
Yeah, I didn't catch up on that. I know they were up by like 14 versus UCF. I don't know what that ended up being.
13.
Okay, yeah. UCF, I think, is a middle of the road Big 12 team. I don't think they're great. I don't think they're terrible. I think they'll absolutely kill Baylor next week, but it's just going to be interesting. What are your early read on the Kansas-Texas game? If you have any on that.
I was impressed with Kansas against Illinois. Now, Illinois is not Texas, but I've always thought that Jalen Daniels was an excellent quarterback. He's a guy that is a perfect combination, or a near perfect combination of athlete and thrower of the football, but he doesn't make mistakes. He's not careless with the ball. Devin Neal's a good back. I got to think that they're going to be, even though they ripped through Illinois' defense, and Illinois' got a strong defensive line, so that was impressive. That would be the only place on the field Illinois could come anywhere close to a Texas. I think they'll score points against Texas, but I just, I see that as like a 45-30 kind of game.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be more high scoring, because I honestly don't think anyone's scoring more than 30 on our defense. So that's the thing. I don't think Kansas is holding us under 30 points. I don't think they're anything spectacular offensively or defensively. So I think that'll be interesting. What did you think of by the way, now that I'm just saying this, what do you think of the Utah? I didn't really watch the UCLA game. That was pretty ugly from what I did see.
Yeah, I had it on a screen in front of me, but I can't say I really watched it. Dante Moore obviously had all sorts of issues. Every time I looked up, he just was being harassed and didn't know what to do. And I got to think his numbers were awful. I know that he led a drive fairly late in the game that produced points that gave them a prayer, but he threw a pick six on his first pass. In Utah understands who they are and understands that they don't have their quarterback, so they're going to take a 14-0 lead and they're just going to sit on it. And it was a pretty non-eventful game.
And then this will be my last question. If you had to guess right now, do you believe Ohio State loses a game in the regular season or no?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you think that's more likely versus Penn State or Michigan?
It's more likely against Michigan, but that doesn't mean that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I would agree just because it's on the road, but I think Penn State might be a better team than Michigan.
The more I dug into Penn State just a few days before the season, the more I was impressed and thought, yeah, I should probably be picking this team to win the Big Ten.
I had them in the playoff. I didn't have them win the Big Ten. I had Michigan and Penn State in the playoff, but I could be wrong. Ohio State did impress me today. I think those are two top 10 teams for sure. Like I said, I think a 12-team playoff would just be spectacular. I really do. I think, honestly, if Notre Dame's like the 10th or 11th best team, they could probably win the national championship. That's what I came away with from this game.
Yeah, everything that we're seeing certainly confirms your angle on all of this, that this is a different year than every other year. That's good for parity. It's good for excitement. It's good for not just thinking that whoever wins the SEC is going to win the national championship.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I can't believe I'm saying this, for like when we get the real Pac-12 games, when we get those Washington versus USC, those Washington versus Oregon, those are going to be, I'm going to stay up late. If they're on late, I'm going to watch those. Those are going to be hell of games.
Yeah, they are. And Aaron's asking us, so what quarterback do you think could match and you would trust with Penix Jr. outside of the Pac-12 conference in an offensive shootout? So basically, he's trying to tell us, I guess, that Penix and Caleb Williams, I assume, are the two best quarterbacks in the country, and I would have no issue with that. That's pretty much how I rank them. Williams 1, Penix 2. Drake May would be the first person that would come to mind as number 3.
I think if Quinn Ewers is on his A game, I think he could. The problem is he's not consistent enough. That's his issue. But if you're telling me Quinn Ewers is on tonight, he can go Penix throw for throw. He can definitely do that. The problem is he has never been as consistent as Michael Penix Jr. from what I've seen. So that's the issue.
Yeah. I think there's a large assumption that the game's going to go that way, and that by the viewer here, by Aaron, that the rest of the team, whether you're talking about Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, that their talent advantage isn't going to be what it is and play out on the field.
Yeah. What I was going to say is the only way, to me, you're going to throw Penix off his game is if you're getting pressure with your front four. If you have to bring 6 guys, he's going to probably piece you apart, honestly. And there are teams that can do that. I think Ohio State could do that. I think Texas could probably do that to him. I think if Alabama gets their offense going and they get in the playoff, they could do it to him. But there's not many, honestly. There's a couple from the Big Ten, 1 or 2 from the SEC, 1 from the Big 12, Florida State. So, I mean, it's all about matchups, honestly. Like, I was looking at us. If we played Washington and USC, scared me the most because our weakness is our secondary. Our front seven's fine. If you want to run against us, I'm not that concerned about it. But if you want to go back there and pick us apart, Caleb Williams and Michael Penix Jr. scared the hell out of me if that's your weakness in your secondary. Yeah. So it'll be interesting.
Well, Caleb Williams scares everyone.
Yeah. But Penix should too, because those are, in my opinion, like I said last week, people are putting Quinn Ewers above him on mock drafts. And I agree. If you think, oh, this guy can make this throw, this guy can't, I think Quinn Ewers can make more throws than Michael Penix. Michael Penix consistently is a better player than Quinn Ewers is. So I think he's the second best quarterback in the country. But that's all I got for you guys. Go over to the Big 12 channel, subscribe. I'm coming after every Texas game. I'm up. And then Texas Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. Like I said, I'll be deep diving more into the Baylor game because you can't really get too much from TV. So I always rewatch it, dive back into it. And then we will be talking about Kansas who was my Big 12 championship. This could be the preview of a Big 12 championship. It could be. So I think it's going to be a good game. So please check that out, guys. Subscribe down below. We are 4-0, guys. Hook 'em. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Matthew. A smarter man than me, because I picked Texas Tech to go to the Big 12 championship game. I had a 3-way tie between Kansas State, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't like just select and say, oh, well, so-and-so, Texas Tech is going to win that 3-way tiebreaker. I went through the schedules and I went through it and determined who would lose to who. And then the tie-breaking system determined that Texas Tech would go to the Big 12 championship game. So that's where I took a hit there, because I was more in the Kansas State thought process that I was going to pick them to go to the Big 12 championship game. All right, we got John on the line. John, what's going on?
How you doing, Mark?
I am doing well.
All right, so well, real quick, I am watching the USC game.
Yes.
Caleb Williams almost should have actually had 3 picks already in the last 2 drives. The defenders for Arizona State dropped them. And I've been noticing that they've been having to use the running back in trick plays a lot against USC because of the quarterback they're playing. They had a wide open touchdown on a fake. It was a wildcat, a fake run up the middle throw, and he just overthrew him. So, and I don't know how big you are in the NFL, but this just came to me. Can you imagine? There's a possibility that the Arizona Cardinals could draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and Caleb Williams. It just came to me. So
because they made a trade.
Yeah, they made a trade last year to get Houston, someone's first round pick. And right now they got like 1st and 3rd overall pick, so they could possibly get.
Wow.
Yeah, but I wanted to bring up the locker room stuff. I don't know if you follow Skip Bayless on Twitter.
No.
Well, what's your thoughts on media being allowed to be in these locker rooms? Because Lanning, I'm sure you heard what Lanning said about the Colorado team.
Yes.
Well, Skip Bayless, being the drama, whatever he is, said that Deion's allowed to do it because he's good at doing it. He's going to use it for recruiting. But
oh, we lost you. You still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're cutting out on us. So back to
Skip what about now?
Said what?
So he pretty much said that Deion's allowed to say whatever he wants in his pregame talk to the team, but the Lannings of the world is what he used. Only do it out of fear for what Deion is doing.
Well, for one thing, Dan Lanning only has to deal with Deion Sanders this year. So Dan Lanning is coming at it from a place of knowing that his team is better, and he's only going to have to deal directly with Deion Sanders this season, and he's in a good position, and that proved on the field. I wish when Skip Bayless or anybody like that would make that kind of comment that they would explain what they mean and explain why Deion Sanders can do whatever he wants and then Dan Lanning cannot.
Yeah, then later on in the day when they did the handshake and hug at the end of the game,
yeah,
he tweeted out, he said, I'm sure Deion wouldn't be so enthusiastic and respectful about the shake and hug if he knew what Lanning said pregame. I just feel like stuff like that should not have a place in college football. I don't like the whole pregame. I understand Colorado is the Cinderella of all sports media right now, but I said it last week when I called in. Let Colorado play some good teams before you crown them.
So let me back up, John, because I want to make sure I got you straight. So first of all, you don't want anything that's stated in the locker room to be publicized.
I don't want something stated in the locker room to be twisted by media. Like the Skip Baylesses of the world saying, that it's disrespectful for Lanning to use that to say that. Colorado goes out and messes with the midfield logo today, and social media is making excuses for them. But just 2 weeks ago, Colorado was saying it was disrespectful for someone to do it to theirs. I just don't like when social media and these media outlets want to twist and kind of like, I don't know. I don't know the words to say it.
Well, I'm right there with you. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in this world nowadays and the way things are handled among grown men that I don't like, that if they were truly grown men, they would handle it different. So number one, I agree with you. If I'm understanding you correctly, what goes on between a head coach and his football team should stay in that locker room. That's what I believe. They should be able to say what they call themselves a family and a brotherhood. We hear those terms all the time. We're a family, we're a brotherhood, but then players will record things and leak them out on social media, or a player will have an issue with his head coach. And we saw this starting more during the COVID year and beyond that. I can think of certain players and Mike Norvell at Florida State and a few other situations where instead of confronting, like if I have an issue with somebody who's close to me, one of my best friends or my brother, I'm not going on social media and attacking them on social media. I'm calling them privately and having a discussion like a man. So that bothers me. I don't like that. I think that's petty and wimpy and whiny and beneath what a man should be.
Right. Now, I will agree. I'm one of those. I'm not against Dion. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against Dion. I don't cheer against Colorado. I pick who I think is going to win. But I'm with you and a bunch of other people about how respectful he was. He earned respect talking about the death threats of the kid last week, about how he handled the post game this week. Yeah, I mean, he's a talker and he's getting paid to talk. Let's be honest. He's bringing attention to Colorado. That's what he was hired to do. That helps with recruiting, and people need to understand that. But he also has to realize that when you talk, you got to back it up. And I understand him saying we're the best in the conference and all that, but you got to understand that you got to back it up. And today proved that they're just not ready. Now,
well, when you say you got to back it up, I totally get where you're coming from there, but he just lost.
Like, I understand he's doing it to like show the confidence he has in his players.
Sure. And when you say he's got to back it up, well, he doesn't necessarily. This didn't cost him his job. It didn't cost him anything. He's still going to play a game next week. So it's not going to cost him that much. He's just going to look foolish if he continues to lose in this manner. But he's got so much love and adulation out there that.
What would you say to those that are saying, well, if Travis Hunter was out there, this would be a different game?
Yeah, it would have been 42-13.
I don't mean to laugh, but yeah, I agree with you. There's a couple more topics I did want to bring up. I hate to jump around on you.
Or maybe Oregon would have taken it seriously further into the second half, and it might have been even worse with Travis Hunter on the field, because Travis Hunter is a phenomenal athlete.
Yes.
My jaw was dropping and my eyes popping out when I saw him play for a full 60 minutes, 141 snaps against TCU, because I knew the reputation and saw highlights, but I never watched him play an entire game, and he was that good. But
can I ask you about that?
But Oregon obviously stopped playing. There's no reason that a team can score 5 touchdowns in the first half and not score more than 1 touchdown in the second half. They obviously, part of me thought, because of this whole Dan Lanning Dion thing, that Dan Lanning was going to try to drive the nail and put the foot down on the throttle and just kill them. And I didn't watch I watched every play of the first half, didn't watch one play of the second half because the game was over. So I don't know what happened exactly, but it doesn't appear as though Dan Lanning really tried to shove it in Dion's face.
Well, let's be honest, if he would have tried to shove it, everyone would have made him out to just be the biggest what in college football. True. But I did want to ask you, now that Travis Hunter was brought up, do you think Dion should continue to let Travis play on both sides, or do you think he should say, hey, if you're wanting to go into the NFL, maybe it's in your best interest to limit yourself to one side of the ball so you're not taking hits like this?
I would think most likely it would be his best interest from a physical standpoint, like you're saying, but also from a focus standpoint to, let's say, be a cornerback if they so choose that that's his best position. And it's, let's face it, and I've been watching the NFL for years, and at one point was as avid, even more so on the NFL, and knew more about the NFL than college football, but that's long since gone by. But as you well know, cornerbacks are more of a premium than wide receivers in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I would think that would be his focus, but we could still, if I'm Dion, tell Travis Hunter, we'll still have some packages for you, some plays for you to come in and run 8 or 10 plays on offense during the course of a game to keep you involved and interested and show that you have that versatility. But yeah, most likely he should be focused on one side of the ball.
Right. Next thing I wanted to bring up was I kind of came in late. I don't know how long I've been sitting in the waiting room, but do you think Ryan Day making the play calls, or is Hartline doing it? Like, does Hartline have any say in the play calling?
So the last I remember us having our conversations with our Ohio State folks on our Wednesday show is that Ryan Day was still keeping that kind of at arm's length to say, we're still evaluating that. We're still looking at that. And Brian certainly has a lot he was saying it in such a way that made it obvious that I'm still Ryan Day calling the plays, but we appreciate Brian's input and we're kind of moving him along and progressing him as somebody that can give some input kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, just his play calling was puzzling to me today. The fourth and inches sweep, the play action pass at the 1 yard line. If you're not going to kick a field goal there, you've already tried running the ball twice. You might as well just do it again. I mean, it's hard to stop a run at the 1 yard line 4 times in a row. That's just what statistics say. And for it to be a play action pass where everyone's going to one side of the field is, I just thought it was foolish. But on the other hand, if Emeka Ibuka catches the ball, if he kicks that field goal at the 1 yard line instead of going for it, there's 10 points. But then again, Notre Dame dropped how many interceptions tonight? Let's be honest here. I'm a Buckeyes fan. I've lived in Ohio my whole life. Some of what I've seen from our quarterback tonight was good, but he should have had at least 2 or 3 interceptions on that stat sheet tonight.
So I'm going to go back to the second to last play of the game when McCord rolled right and tried to hit Marvin Harrison, and then tie that together with what Ryan Day said after the game. And I didn't hear the complete comment because some people were on here, and I'm going to have to go back and listen to it about Ryan Day taking shots at, maybe it was Lou Holtz or whatever he did.
Yeah.
But I heard, I was moving from my living room over here to move things around. And then I thought, I want to hear what Ryan Day has to say, but I missed all that. And I heard him make the comment when he was asked about the final play call, the comment that, well, on the play before, we were trying to get the ball to Marvin Harrison. He's the best player in football. It's best wide receiver in football. And I'm thinking, well, I understand that is a overall philosophy for the game, but why are you trying to force feed him the ball on the final play? You've got weapons all over the place. Design the best play to get. You've got 5 dudes that are capable of catching the ball, outfighting a defender, whatever, to make a play. Why would you force feed one guy the ball when the game on the line?
Right after Ibuka made a fantastic play sitting down right in the middle of the zone. And it was a great throw by McCord.
Yeah.
I'll give him some credit with some of the throws he did make, but Kyle McCord this is where I kind of wish we still had Urban Meyer, because if you remember, Cardell Jones is kind of like Kyle McCord is kind of like Cardell Jones is. A bigger quarterback, big arm, can run, but can't at the same time. And Urban Meyer did a fantastic job with Cardale Jones, who just got thrown in there because of 2 hurt quarterbacks. I wish Ryan Day could go back and just was he on that staff?
With the no, not that early. No, he
No,
wasn't
okay.
there until I think he was there for 2 years, 2017 and 18. I'll have to double check on that.
Okay. Because the job that Urban Meyer did with Cardale Jones is something I think that's someone I think Kyle McCord could be. But there's just so many past. I understand it's his first big game, but you're missing a swing pass out to a running back. Like,
oh yeah,
you got to clean these up. Like, you can't. I think Penn State's the best team in the conference right now, and like I said, I am an Ohio State fan. The way they dismantled Iowa. Now, I understand Iowa's offense has not been notoriously known for for being good.
Sure.
But the way that they just picked apart Iowa's defense, because Iowa normally has a good defense, it's scary for Ohio State fans. It's got to be scary. I know Michigan fans, they're a little more. We're not scared of anything, but wait till you play Maryland this year. We're going to have trouble with them. And I know Michigan fans were saying about, oh, well, look what Notre Dame did to Ohio State in that run offense. And I will defend the whole Michigan saying, look what we're going to do to them. Well, Donovan Edwards hasn't looked great for you guys. Blake Corum hasn't really looked great for you guys either. That offensive line kind of struggled to move the ball in the first quarter and a half against Rutgers today. I mean, you guys aren't world beaters either. Sorry, I just had to take a shot against Michigan fans. We struggle. We beat the number 9 team of the comeback fashion, but you guys struggle against Rutgers, and you could only put up 31 and 35 against the teams you played before. So, but Penn State, so far, I know they haven't really played the greatest competition, but they've looked like the best team in the conference.
Yeah, they have.
That
said, the game at Illinois wasn't a work of art.
No, it was not. And honestly, I think if Illinois still had they don't have the running back anymore, do they? They had last year.
No, Chase Brown. No.
Yeah. Honestly, if they obviously ifs, ands, and buts or whatever, I think if Penn State played like that if Illinois had Chase Brown, they would have lost that game. But Illinois just couldn't move the ball. So I know I called last week and I asked you, did Ohio State need to win in dominant fashion to get respect? Do you think that the committee still moves them down, or not the committee, but AP poll still moves them down? Moves them down for this performance? Yeah, I mean they blew out the first 3 teams that got moved down 4 spots from where they started, right? 2 spots from where they started.
So I think 2 things there. One was the first 2 wins by many people's standards or Ohio State standards were ugly. The first one, they were move the ball 23-3, et cetera. Then the second one, it's an FCS team, and they didn't score at all in the second half. Maybe 1 score. Anyway, they were ugly wins, but it was more about what other teams did. Texas jumped. Florida State jumped them because of what they did against the teams that they did it against.
Right. And then Texas goes out and struggles with, who was it, Wyoming?
Yes.
So. And
Florida State with Boston College.
I was talking to my dad earlier. I didn't get to watch the Florida State Clemson game today. I was helping my brother. My dad said that Florida State should have lost the game because I guess Clemson missed a field goal, or.
Yes. I don't know if you heard the story this week. Clemson signed a place kicker that they used to have on scholarship who never attempted a kick. They signed him this week, got him back on the roster. He had already accepted a job in New York City, and he missed a field goal, with about 3 or 4 minutes left.
Do you expect Florida State to get knocked a little bit for that?
No.
They
probably should, but I don't think they will.
Yeah, I was watching College Game Day earlier, and oh shoot, the Michigan player that's on College Game Day, Desmond Howard, was saying how it's not as hard to win in that city or in that stadium during the day. And I started laughing. I'm like, what's the difference between day and night? Obviously,
Yeah, I
they
think
do the
all
whole,
that's way overblown.
yeah, that it's so, and that rivalry's been so big that I think Florida State just breaking that streak kind of gives them, the benefit of the doubt of what that game ended up being.
Anytime
But
I hear somebody talk about those kind of cliched, shoot, I'm not finding the right word for it, but those kind of cliched assumptions of the way sports are played. Like, I've heard people say in the NFL, division games are tougher than other games.
right,
Well, okay, I would need somebody to actually do research on that to show
Yeah.
that to me, and then it's tougher to play on the road at night than it is during the day. Again, nobody's done any research to back this up. It's just kind of this, made up
Yeah.
assumption.
like what they do with the Happy Valley and the whiteout game, and
Yeah, that they're now 9-6, and that's supposed to
that's
be
what they
so
are in the
devastating.
whiteout games.
Yes.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So their winning percentage in non-whiteout games is better than their winning percentage in whiteout games.
Yeah.
Now, granted,
I
they usually
agree with
pick
you.
a really good team to play, but
Right. I mean, I agree with you about the whole. It's harder to play conference games than it is out of conference games. Just ask Michigan. And Appalachian State. Sorry, that's my final dig. I'm sorry. I did want to ask your thoughts on JJ McCarthy on his performance after how he played last week, throwing the 3 interceptions. Because I am a Big Ten fan in whole. I do root for all the Big Ten until they. Believe it or not, I do root for Michigan until they play Ohio State, because I want Big Ten as a whole to succeed. So,
well, I thought JJ McCarthy the first 2 weeks of the season looked amazing, and I probably would have seen 0 of those passes except for I heard he was playing so well that I wanted to go back and look at it, but I didn't watch those games. Plus, I go on this Michigan podcast with Steve Dace, and I want to be able to know what I'm talking about. So I went back and watched everything, and I thought he looked phenomenal. I thought he looked like such a sharper, more polished quarterback than at any time last year, albeit against the competition he was facing. Then he looked the way he did last week, and I thought today's performance was something more in between those two extremes. And I also think that Rutgers has a pretty good defense.
yeah, no, well, I do too. My buddy, who's a Michigan fan, he felt like McCarthy was kind of forcing the ball last week, and he said I think that JJ just has a moxie about himself, or my guys are better than your guys, and I'm just going to throw it to him. And that's what ended up getting him in trouble. So, but like I said, I want Michigan to play well, because that makes the game at the end of the year even better. But that's it for me tonight. I wanted to talk about a couple things. I know last time I called last week, I talked a lot of Ohio State, so I wanted to make sure I got a bunch of teams in here. So
sounds good, John. I appreciate the call.
All right, thank you.
All right, have a good night. Let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. Of course, let's lock it in all week, folks. We got like 185 people here. Check out the videos. We do the analysis on the games, as many as I can get to. I usually try to watch 2 games at noon and analyze both of them, churn out those videos, try to do the same thing at 3:30. The issue is, though, after I get done doing the noon analysis and those games overlap the 3:30, then it's tough to do 2 games at 3:30. So anyway, we did Colorado, Oregon, Michigan, Rutgers, and Florida State, Clemson today. Check out those videos. And of course, the Amazon links in the description section of all the videos, folks. Every video, go to the description section, grab the Amazon link, put it somewhere where you will remember it, and please use it. All right, we got Michael checking in tonight. Michael, what's going on here? The voice of college football.
Not much. How you doing tonight, Mark?
I'm doing well.
Hey, first thing I gotta ask you, what was the similar resemblance between the Purdue-Penn State game last year and the Ohio State-Notre Dame game tonight?
The resemblance of the game tonight, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Purdue, and who?
Penn State last year.
What is that they both played with a ball made out of cowhide? I don't know what you're getting at.
Both of them was winning late in the game, and instead of running the ball, what was they doing? They threw the ball instead of running the clock out.
Yeah, I don't remember what happened at the end of Penn State Purdue last year.
And that's what happened because Penn State got the ball back after the incomplete pass with, I can't remember his Payne Durham last year, which should have been what everybody thought was the catch, but he did bobble it. And then Penn State scores with like about 45 seconds left and hanging on to beat Purdue in the home opener last year at Ross State. Same thing happened in Notre Dame tonight. But I digress. And that too. Question number 2, and I seen this earlier, and I asked you, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but when was the last time in a college game that one person had 2 pick sixes in a game?
I can't think of the player's name. He was just drafted out of Mississippi State. He has the college record for pick sixes, and I'm almost positive he had 2 in one game. Why?
No, because it happened in the Kentucky game today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And question number 3, and I forgot how I was going to, and I forgot about this. Give me a minute to think about, but no, that was a good game and stuff like. Oh yeah, and the Ohio State game where you was complaining about the Marvin Harrison Jr. catch.
Yes.
In the second quarter.
Yes.
People must not have seen it, but his hand when he landed, his hand was out of bounds. That's why they ruled it an incomplete pass.
But he had already landed his foot.
Yeah, but I guess when he came back up or something, I don't know, but it was what it is and stuff like that. But too many dumb penalties and stuff like that.
When the ball hit between his 2 hands, he had already planted his foot.
But he was up in the air, wasn't he?
No, I'm saying when his foot stuck the ground, he had his hands around the football.
Yeah, and then I guess they didn't consider him completing the catch because he was falling backwards. It is what it is, but no.
I think there's a reason the network showed the play like 85 times. It's because he caught the ball.
Yeah, but I didn't hear what McCauley had to say about it and stuff like that, though. But what did you think about the intentional grounding there on McCord there? And then him getting lucky the next play on the fourth down. I think it was the fourth down when they got the ball, the 1 yard line on that laser throw.
That was lucky? You just called that throw he made lucky?
No, a laser throw. That ball was on a rope.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah, the intentional grounding, I had no issue with that call. I thought it was the correct call. He was inside the tackle box.
Mm-hmm. But did it look like at first he's grabbed by the jersey or grabbed by the face mask? Because I was talking with a couple people
I didn't see
at B-Dubs on the same play, and it looked like he might be grabbed by the face mask. I don't know. So, but no, I was just wondering stuff like that. But if you're Notre Dame, how do you bounce back from a tough loss?
It's a long season. How do you bounce back? These teams. Every team in the nation is going to lose at least one game, excluding maybe 1, maybe 2. Look at this is what they do. They're resilient. They're kids. They come back. I'm not saying it's easy, but you have to accentuate the positives and say, let's get back at it. This is part of life. You get knocked down. Life's not always fair. There's adversity.
Mm-hmm. And when was the last time you seen a team have less than 100 yards total offense and run like less than 50 plays in the game before, like he did with Iowa and Penn State tonight?
Oh my word!
Yeah, 33 plays, 76. That's like what? 2 yards a play or something.
So there was a team last week that ran 44 plays, and I'm trying to think who that was. Oh, it was Michigan against whoever they wiped out last week, Bowling Green. And I thought they only
Yeah.
ran 44 plays. How was that possible? Yeah, Iowa, I know it was late in the game. They only had 33 plays, and I thought,
Oh, and touchdown Arizona State. They just scored
wow.
24-19, pinning the extra point.
If this was another day at another time where there wasn't games going on that we need to talk about, I would go through this Purdue Penn State scenario from last year because I'm looking at the box score right now, but we're not going to do that tonight.
Mm-hmm. I was just wondering stuff like that. No, but
all right. Anything else, Michael?
That's about it. I can't wait for the top 25 because I got a feeling you're going to be doing some major shakeups tomorrow.
Oh, yes. There's going to be a big shakeup in the top 25 that actually makes sense. Absolutely.
All right. I'll be looking for it. And your next stream is Monday night with the Big Ten show at 6, right?
Absolutely.
All right, sir. Have a good one.
Thank you, Michael. All right. We will keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. We've got Jeffrey checking in.
Glad to be on tonight, and the family, again, is very happy about Alabama's performance against the Ole Miss Rebels. And I picked Alabama to win. And I know that a lot of people thought Ole Miss could get it done. And I thought that there was a legitimate shot that they could because they are a talented team. Jackson Dart is a capable quarterback. Wichon Judkins is a fantastic running back. But still, Alabama's defense, I know that they got burned against Texas, but I just didn't see the same level, of Ole Miss's offense that you saw with Texas. And I just felt like Alabama would be able to win. And since Jalen Milroe was picked as the starting quarterback again, he's clearly the most dynamic quarterback of the three.
Yes.
He makes bad mistakes. That one throw he had in double coverage in the end zone was terrible. Yeah. And it was very reminiscent to the Texas game where he had 2 interceptions that were the exact same thing, throwing in double coverage. If he can clean that up, everything else about his game is fine. He's got the athleticism to run the ball down the field. He can throw the ball 65, 70 yards down the field. His arm is insane. He made a couple of great throws in the Ole Miss game, just like he did in the Texas game. So I'm not saying Alabama's still going to be a CFP contender, and I'm not saying that they'll win the West. But Alabama clearly isn't a dumpster fire or have fallen off the map completely. They've got problems, and they're not as good as they used to be. But that was a really good win. Their defense was reminiscent of teams in the past that Alabama's had, and their offense got by, and they didn't make as many mistakes as they did against Texas, and Ole Miss never really was basically had a shot to win. So I thought it was a great performance from Alabama today.
I thought it was too. I wasn't super hyper focused on the game, but I was watching the game. I had it in front of me, and I thought the defense was exceptional. Jalen Milroe, I think they're figuring out what to do, what they can do with him and how to handle him and, play to his strengths, not completely try to shut him down and play like an Indiana approach against Ohio State in particular. But, we talked about it a few other times. You gotta limit his reads. You need to make it very decisive on where he's going to go with the ball, and then don't give him any other options, and then have him take off and run with it. And I think Alabama's got a game plan going forward. And fortunately for them, they don't have any superpowers in that division with them. LSU would be the closest thing to it, but we saw that they're extremely vulnerable themselves. So it should be a fascinating Western Division race.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. I was very impressed with the performance. I was happy Alabama got the win. Good day for some of my favorite teams overall, but I was definitely proud of the Alabama performance. But try to get through some of these games real quick because I know you've got callers behind, and I got a lot of games I want to touch on real quick. Florida State, Clemson. I cannot believe that game. I picked Clemson to win, and I thought I was right. I thought Clemson, they're going to get it done. They were up by 7, driving down the field, and then Cade Klubnik gets whacked. And that ball goes flying out. They scoop it up, take it all the way back. And then Clemson holds them again and again and again. You have a field goal. And the situation with the kicker that you outlined earlier is just crazy enough in itself. But then he misses. and then it goes to overtime, and then they lose. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, I don't know. This is the question I have for you about this game, and I know it's an impossible question to answer. That's the type of question I like to ask. Do you think that Florida State, that this proves that possibly they're not as good as people think that they could possibly be? Or do you feel like that Clemson's not as bad as people think that they are? I'm kind of floating in the middle.
Well, I'm generally floating in the middle, but if you're going to make me pick a side, it's that Clemson's not as bad as people think.
I would have to agree. I mean, I think Florida State's a good team. Jordan Travis is a good quarterback, and they've got loads of talent. I love the graphic they had on the screen of all those portal guys going through the door. For Florida State had like 17, and Clemson, it was closed, and it had 0. I was laughing at that because we've talked about that before. But, man, Florida State is good, but if they want to be a national title contender, they have to play better. It was a tough environment. I know that you mentioned, or just few minutes ago, that whether the game's at night or whether the game's during the day, it doesn't necessarily matter on the difference. I would say it does a hair, especially in some environments like LSU or Florida. Maybe at night it's a little bit. I don't know.
Somebody has to prove this to me. That's what I'm saying. I didn't say that it doesn't. I said
know you didn't.
This has never been proven to me in any such way. That's like the concept of a trap game. I get it. I don't have to have anybody explain to me what a trap game is, but nobody's ever done the analytics to prove whether it actually means anything.
I agree. I mean, but momentum, people are fluky on that term as well, but momentum's a real thing as well. And after the fumble, it brought Florida State back in the game, and they ended up winning. Good win for them, but I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe this is a conversation for another time, but I would argue momentum and luck, that's another thing. Like, if you asked me, have there been games in football history where I felt like one team was luckier than the other? I would say absolutely.
Like Nebraska going 3-9, they were unlucky.
That are lucky, but is there such a thing as luck? No, there's not a power that is luck. It's random. That's my point, is that it just like you're not lucky and I'm not unlucky. But on a particular day, you might be lucky and I'm unlucky, but we might play a week later and I would be lucky and you'd be unlucky. It's a completely random thing. There's no such thing as luck in that it's some kind of mystic power. Just like I don't believe in momentum. I believe that there are people playing that have emotion. And therefore, if things are going well for you and you are feeding off of that and you're feeding off the momentum of the crowd and all of that, yes, you are generating excitement and more passion in your play that is called momentum. But then we have such a thing as like suddenly my quarterback fumbles and the momentum stopped. There was a momentum change. No, there was a fumble. And suddenly the other team was sparked by that. So yes, that's obvious.
Yeah, I know it's superfluous. I know, but I mean, it's like Florida. You talk about feed off the energy against Tennessee and that crowd, and the players are playing harder than ever. I agree. It doesn't make sense, but that's why we love football. It's all over the place. But that game is what it is. Good for Florida State, but I definitely want to see more from them before I say that possibly they can win it all. Next game, I picked Notre Dame. So I struck out against Clemson and Notre Dame. I picked both of them. Notre Dame loses. And the only play that I want to talk about of that game is the 4th and 7 that Ohio State has that they're facing. Why did Notre Dame call timeout? I have no idea.
Well, I did think at the time, I thought, wow, okay, this has given Ohio State some time to pull it together, regroup, really calm themselves and concentrate. But at the same time, I'm guessing Notre Dame went out there and thought, okay, we don't like. Now, I'd have to go look at the alignment as they were starting to line up and then go back and see if there was some kind of difference. But that was my thought, is that Notre Dame, it's almost like a basketball play coming out of a timeout. How many times do they set up a play and the defense doesn't like the way the offense is set up, and then they call it another timeout to at least combat that. And then you assume the offense then knows, okay, well, they defended that play. We're going to have to come up with another one.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, and I'll have to look at it again too. But when I saw it live, my
Yeah.
first reaction was like, Ohio State's going to get this. They're gonna pick up this first down because you called timeout. And I mean, I don't know why, but that's just the way my brain felt because Ohio State, they're a team that you can't give them a lot of chances. You can't give them a chance. And Notre Dame gave them a chance by punting the ball because they had to, obviously. But then, and plus they didn't run the ball more, which did not burn as much clock. And then you have them in a 4th and 7, Ohio State scrambling on offense. Colin McCourt's trying to snap the ball like 5 seconds left. And then you call timeout. And I was like, I told my family, I was like, oh, it's an Ohio State timeout. And it was like, timeout Notre Dame. And I was like, what? You just blew it. You blew it. Why'd you do that? I don't know. I just thought it was hilarious, though. And then they ended up losing on the final play of the game, which was insane. And I was like, great game. Insane game. Good win for Ohio State and Colin McCourt in that environment. But I just feel like if Notre Dame doesn't call that timeout, I'm not saying Ohio State wouldn't have got the first. You never know. But I think it would have been harder because they were scrambling around. I just don't think it was a good timeout, but it is what it is. But
well, when you talk about all those kind of mystical things like momentum and luck and all that sort of thing, it made me think, I wonder if there is a greater majority of Ohio State fans that watch a game like that just think we're going to win. And a greater majority of Notre Dame fans that watch a game like that. And despite,
well, why wouldn't they? They haven't beat him since 1936.
Yeah. And not just against Ohio State, but Notre Dame loses those kind of games and Ohio State wins those kind of games.
My family was saying that too. They're like, Notre Dame never wins the big game. Why'd you pick Notre Dame? And I'm like, because they're at home. And Sam Hartman's a 6-year senior, and Kyle McCord's a freshman. They're going to win this time. And I'm like, I did it. And then no. And then it's like Ohio State wins on the last play of the game. It was pandemonium. It was hilarious. But I don't know. That was my favorite game of the day, even more than Alabama winning. That was awesome. But that game, just the back and forth and how it ended was insane. A couple more games I want to touch on really quick. Colorado, I picked them to lose. And I was trying to be nice. I picked them to lose by like 10 or 14, something like that. But in my heart, I knew that they probably were going to lose by more.
Yep.
And I had a lot of people, because you mentioned what you talked about earlier, that whole conversation that you were saying about people being rude with the Colorado stuff. It's insane. The media has gone crazy with Colorado, and I understand. It's a fantastic story. And I like Deion Sanders too. Like everyone else has said, it's like we're all repeating each other. I legitimately do. I'm not just saying it so, to make any haters out there. I do like Deion Sanders. Great player. I think he's a funny guy, nice guy, and all that kind of stuff. And he did a great thing with the Colorado State player as well. But the problem is when the media overhypes a team like Colorado and people that really know the sport know that the Buffaloes are not great, that they have a lot more work to do if they want to become a great program. They got to get, more talent in. They've got to, build that, I guess you would say, culture there and all that kind of thing, And when you're saying how great that they are, the media's over. I mean, they just got blown out against Oregon, and already the broadcast, the big noon kickoff game between USC and Colorado, is going to be the greatest game ever. And I'm like, they're not even going to be ranked. What are you talking about? I mean, they're probably going to get destroyed unless USC plays like they're playing against Arizona State right now. I mean,
yeah, this is surprising me right here.
I mean, I felt bad for Colorado. And again, I'm not glad they lost like that, but in a way, it was almost kind of a good thing too, because it's going to calm everything down. Things were getting out of hand with the Colorado stuff, with what happened with Colorado State, the media, and the people that are on the Colorado side versus the not. I have no say either way. I like the story, but it was kind of going crazy. And again, this is just a wake-up call here. It's nothing Deion did wrong. Hunter wouldn't have saved the day, obviously, like you mentioned earlier, no chance. But this game needed to happen in a way, because even though I feel bad for Colorado, the story was going crazy and things were getting out of hand everywhere. And realistically, outside of the bandwagon fans, even the Colorado fans themselves, the people that know their team knew that they were 21-point underdog. It was only the bandwagon fans that were going crazy with it. People knew Colorado was nowhere near as good as Oregon, and that Autzen is not the same environment as TCU's environment. It is what it is, but I expected this to happen. Maybe not this bad, though.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I expected them to lose big, but not 35-0 at half. Yeah. Like I thought, they're both teams are going to score a lot of points, but Oregon's going to score like a lot of points. Like I expected more like 45-24. Something like that, but Oregon could have named the number. They just
they could have done what they did to
bounced
Portland
them.
State, you know, and it was like 73-7 or whatever. It could have been like that. It's like, oh, well, we just beat the same level of competition. No, you beat a better team. It's really impressive. Colorado is better, but yeah, you beat them pretty badly. Another game real quick, UNC at Pitt. I was a bit shocked. I know you said that you felt that game would be a bit closer. And I mean, I thought kind of because it was at Heinz Field. But Pittsburgh, I was shocked, put up 24. Carolina's defense is blowing my mind because North Carolina, you go out there and you destroy South Carolina's offensive line. You sack Rattler 9 times. And I'm like, wow, okay, North Carolina's defense is really good. And then they play App State. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're reverting. I know it's App State. They play everyone close. And then you go out there and you beat Minnesota fairly easily. But, hey, Minnesota just lost to Northwestern in overtime. So, I don't know. They lost to Bowling Green, still went 8-4.
Minnesota lost to Northwestern. I didn't see that score. Are you
they
serious?
Did. 37-34 in overtime.
My word.
Yes. So,
Wow.
maybe Minnesota's not great. But they could bounce back like they did after the Bowling Green loss. But North Carolina gives up 24 to Pitt. And Jurkovec played better than he did against his previous opponents, West Virginia and all that. But I don't know. North Carolina, I can't figure. I think they're good, but there's potential to be better than this. And the fact they're 4-0, I can't complain. Happy about it. But I don't know. Something tells me that North Carolina's not still where that they possibly could be. I know that spread's 7, so they won by more, but Pitt's not good either.
No, it just doesn't surprise me because I know that North Carolina is just playing so much better than Pitt, and Pitt's been so lousy. And I saw some of that West Virginia game last week, and their offense was so atrocious in that game. But college football teams tend to bounce back kind of to the median. In a sense, I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. And that's one of the reasons why Vegas doesn't go too crazy evaluating these teams from week to week and overreacting to. Yeah, if you just watch North Carolina play and some of the teams that they beat, like a South Carolina, and like the performance they had last week versus Pitt, you would think that they would win this game 45-17, and it would be easy.
I think I predicted them to win by like 20-21, and they won by 17. So it's not like it was a necessarily bad performance. It's just the fact they gave up that many points to a team that's been struggling offensively. Now, hey, West Virginia might be good though on defense because they destroyed Texas Tech's offense, which I don't know. I mean, Texas Tech almost beat Oregon, then they go out there and they can't put up any points against West Virginia. Then Iowa State puts up 7 against Ohio, and then they score all over Oklahoma State. It's confused. That's why college football doesn't make any sense.
No.
These teams just fluctuate all over the place, and you're comparing teams to the way they perform up to this point, and then they just do something that you're not expecting.
Yeah. All the teams in the middle don't make sense. There's about 5 teams you can count on.
I agree.
They generally make sense every year, but nobody else does. Yeah.
Yeah. Another team, Indiana won tonight, but I don't know. Indiana won. That's about it. They beat Akron 29-27 in 4 overtimes. And now it shattered all my confidence in them. I thought they maybe 5-7 bowl team, and now I'm like, are they going to win another game? I don't know.
I saw that score sitting here, saw 27 all, and I just couldn't believe that Indiana's messing around with one of the worst MAC teams.
It don't make sense. And they should have lost. Akron is the same thing as Clemson. Akron had a 30-yard field goal with 3 seconds left in regulation. 17 all. Akron could have won the game. I was watching it. I was like, they're going to hit it. Indiana's going down. It's all over. Tom Allen's going to get fired the next day. And then they miss. And then somehow Indiana ends up winning after a bunch of overtimes. And my eyes are bleeding on, in front of my TV. I don't know. They won. But all I know is Michael Penix leaving, I think might end up being Tom Allen's, death knell. I just don't think that they're going to rebound from it. They're not a bad team. Like, they've got talent, but the ineptness of the way they played tonight against a team that is awful, I don't understand, especially the way you played against Louisville. Louisville just blew out BC. The same team that hung with Florida State. You hung with them, Indiana. You almost tied the game, and then you play Akron and you do that. With
You're
Kentucky
stretching that out a lot of degrees.
I know. And I'm like, maybe Indiana will bounce back and hang with Maryland. Maybe they'll beat Rutgers. Maybe they'll beat Michigan State, Purdue, Illinois, make a bowl. I don't know, but I don't know. This performance tonight was bad. They won, though. I mean, it's all that matters. Even like the Big Ten broadcasters, they're like, the win is a win. I'm like, yeah, if you had a loss, then everyone would have been going after Indiana, torches and everything, fire everybody. I mean, they're still saying that, but I don't know. I mean, do you think, I know it's a dumb question, but do you think Tom Allen has any shot of turning this around? Like, do you think Indiana's bad, or do you think they just had an awful game? I don't know.
I think Indiana is one of the 10 or 15 worst Power 5 teams.
Which I agree with.
Yeah, I think they're pretty bad. And would they play this well against, or this poorly against Akron if they played them 10 times? No. They would probably the majority of time beat them by, 14, 17, 20. They would probably a couple times just obliterate them, and then they would play a couple games like this, and they lucked out that they threw out this bad of a game, and they had a 30-yard field goal get missed, just like last year against Western Kentucky. They had a field goal get missed.
And Michigan
that
State.
saved them.
Michigan State, too. They missed a 20-yard field goal. I remember I was watching the game. I was like, Michigan State, they're going to hit it. It's all over. And then they missed. Indiana ends up winning the game. And the next overtime, win the brass platoon. I don't even know what to say about Indiana. It's like they're just not capable of winning by more than
If
10,
I were
14.
the athletic director at Indiana, at the point that I'm firing Tom Allen, I would remind him, okay, this is your record, but if there were capable field goal kickers on the other teams, this would be your record. So you're even worse than that. So I'm firing.
It's like Scott Frost. It's like Scott Frost. If you didn't have all these turnovers and mistakes and balls going over the quarterback's head and all the onside kicks against Northwestern, you'd be pretty good. You'd be over 500 right now and still have a job. But yeah, I don't know. Again, I know there's a lot of people behind, but I mean, trying to go over other games really quick. There's a lot of games. Iowa's defense was not enough to help that offense. Penn State's pretty good. Utah, UCLA, like you said, nothing happened in that game. Nothing at all whatsoever. It was unbelievable how poor the offense. I grant Utah, I get it, but I thought UCLA, with Utah only scoring 14, I would have thought they could have won. Oregon State, Washington State, the Pac-2 game, great game. Oregon State struggled at times, but they came back. I picked Oregon State. They didn't win, but that was a really good game, hoping the Big 12 will take them in somehow. Then you had Florida beat Charlotte, but again, they were not super impressive after that great win over Tennessee. They won 22-7. Kentucky was decent. I don't know. Maryland was pretty good. It's just a lot of decent games, interesting games today. I really enjoyed this week of college football. I don't know if any week's going to have this many headline games, and not all the games delivered, but I did really enjoy this week of college football. It's probably the last time that Indiana, North Carolina, and Alabama are going to go 3-0 for me, so I got to just take it in. I mean, it's not going to happen again, especially if Indiana keeps playing like that. But I think Alabama, they were impressed today. North Carolina did good enough, and Indiana survived, and it was a good week of college football. And as long as USC doesn't blow, it shouldn't be too many more surprises today. And again, Tom Allen's probably watching Penix as he's going to bed and wishing he still had him. That's about all I got to say. I really appreciate you having me on tonight, Mark. Like and subscribe again. I say it all the time because he deserves more subs than this. Hardest working guy I've ever seen in my life doing college sports and having to talk to so many different people. He keeps a level head every single time. You just can't beat Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. But I appreciate you having me on. Fantastic week of college football.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Appreciate it so much.
You're welcome.
Call back.
I have a
anytime,
blast talking
sir.
to you every single time I get to talk. Saturday nights when I should be in bed going to church, weeknights, whenever.
Thanks, Jeffrey. All right, our guy Jeffrey, check it in. Always good to hear from him. I highlighted my predictions here. So 14-6 against the spread, even though I had a typo and had intended on Miami. That's what I put on my other sheet, Miami, to cover against Temple. I would have been 15-5 against the spread. So we had a pretty good day. 17-4 straight up. So if you want to check my picks, you can either get them on Patreon. You go to patreon.com/MarkRogersTV, or you sign up here on YouTube. Just be a YouTube member here with the channel membership. That's whatever it is, $3 a month. And you get my picks 14-6 against the spread today. And that's with a typo. I actually went, my decision making was 15-5 against the spread today. There you go. All right. And fortunately, I stayed away from this USC Arizona State game. All right. Let's keep it going here at the Voice of College Football. We've got a very happy Buckeye Mike with us.
How you doing, Mark?
I am doing well. What's going on, sir?
I will tell you, I have never in my life, and I've experienced some really good, really great Ohio State games. I have never experienced so much Schadenfreude in my life. The craziest reactions to this entire game. My grandmother, I went and watched a game with some family. My grandmother walked in right after Ohio State scored. She threw her tablet on the ground and it broke. She absolutely despises Ohio State. It is just absolute madness and fun, and I loved it. I loved it. I do think, obviously, Ohio State still has some issues. I feel like Ohio State got really lucky. And you know what? Reverse psychology does work sometimes, because if you remember my prediction, I said Notre Dame would win 41-17.
That's what you consider to be reverse psychology?
A little bit.
That's what I consider to be a bad prediction.
Well, I still feel like Ohio State has some issues, and you cannot, as you've already said, you cannot just force feed the ball to Marvin. You have weapons, use all the weapons. I almost lost it when I believe it was the final drive, and McCord threw the ball a little high over Stover, and it was almost intercepted, and then it hit the ground.
Oh, yes.
McCord did improve, I believe. I still feel like he needs to work on not showing the defense who you're going to throw it to, like not staring down your receiver.
I'd agree with that. Yes, he is still learning how to set up a defense and read coverages, but not let them know where he's telegraphing the football. Yes, he does that on occasion. Absolutely.
Yeah, he still does. The whole thing with the Harrison catch, now they came out after halftime and said that when they showed it again, he had his foot down, he possessed the ball, he did not survive the ground, because once his forearm hit the ground, the ball juggled, but it was still within his arms, and so that's why I was confused.
Yeah, I would have to have that explained to me, because I saw the play like 18 different times and I thought it was a catch. Now, the most important thing is what happened. So there was pass interference on the play, so they got a first down. They just didn't get all that yardage they would have gotten. And then that was a drive in which, what happened after that? Did they punt? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Well, that's
honestly
what matters, because it's like anytime if I'm taking game notes and a wide receiver drops a pass, let's say on 2nd and 10, that would have been a first down, but the next play that they convert the first down anyway, well, then it doesn't matter that they had a dropped pass, because that got wiped out. So that's what I would have to go back and look at, is what happened on the rest of the drive.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if they scored or whatever happened, then it doesn't. I think they punted. I think
so.
That's why it became a big deal.
Yeah. Were you, last little thing on this specific game, were you shocked by how scoreless the game was in the first half? I mean, I know we got a field goal right before halftime, but
I was mildly surprised. I wasn't shocked. I didn't think it was going to be a big shootout. I said, somebody that called earlier, it might have been David, because we had the conversation earlier, and I was expecting a game slightly, maybe one more touchdown for each team. I was going like low 20s on this game.
like 24-21-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, I know, like, I shot off the cuff with 41-17, but it was already out there, and I felt like, well, even though, like I said, I told you I could see 21-17, I had to stick with my guns and go with what I said. So
Sure. What amused me a little bit internally was, and I mentioned this at some point, is that I don't know how many times this week I said, imagine this scenario. Ohio State's down 14-10. It's all over the place. So I could pull up any live stream where I said it's 14-10. Kyle McCord's got to like run the offense with like 90 seconds left to score a touchdown. Like I should clip that off. I don't know how many times I said that, and I said 14-10 every time. Anyway, go ahead, Mike.
So yes, congrats to Ohio State for winning that game. Congrats to Notre Dame because you gave us a heck of a game. It was a test. I still have, like you, I still have my doubts for this team. I think Penn State could be a challenge. I think Penn State would be another close classic. And I am not confident at this moment, even though we just pulled off the biggest win of the year. Granted, we haven't really played anyone. I'm not confident that this team could beat Michigan. I am confident slightly, very ever so slightly, that the game this year could actually be closer than it's been the last two. Speaking of the game, congrats to Michigan. You won in a dominant fashion. It's definitely should have, well, not should have, but I feel like most people would say that they probably should have won by a higher margin. But at the end of the day, as we keep seeing, a win is a win. And it was definitely an interesting first quarter in that game for Michigan. As we already stated with previous callers, Florida State. What an insane catch in overtime for the touchdown for Florida State. That was
Yes. That was a great
really
throw as well, but yes, a better catch.
And I do feel like even though it is Clemson, they're kind of on the downward spiral-ish. For one, I feel like Dabo is really going to need to start utilizing the transfer portal.
Yes.
Or you're going to start seeing Clemson trend down to the point that maybe they want to move on because the talent is not equal where it needs to be. But for the talent that Clemson does have, I do feel like it was a pretty good game. And as Jeffrey and I'm sure some other callers have stated, Clemson choked it away because they should have won on that last second field goal. As you already stated, Oregon just mopped the floor with Colorado. And there's so much there. I don't want to waste your time or my time because I feel like you've gone over it a lot. Oklahoma, to a degree, I feel like got a significant win today over Cincinnati. Granted, it is just Cincinnati is their first year in the Big 12. It is a conference win, though, so that is a positive. And for whatever reason, now I didn't do a whole lot of digging in the offseason into what Oklahoma's done to improve coming into this year, but Oklahoma seems to be doing a lot better, or at least better, than they were last year.
Well, what they did was they went out and got, more than anything, a ton of defensive linemen in the transfer portal. Rondell Bothroyd from Wake Forest and Devin Sears from Texas State, and I could name a bunch of other ones. Anyway, so they beefed up their defense. They knew that they were too thin, too light along the defensive line and not good enough there. So that's where they got most of their improvement on the defensive side.
Absolutely. So what everybody on the TV anyway was coining the Pac-2 championship. Congratulations to Washington State for beating Oregon State. That was a good game. Not a lot of defense because I know both teams, I believe, almost scored 40 points each. And my final game I wanted to touch on real quick is Marshall beating Virginia Tech. Now, I realize that Virginia Tech is bottom tier ACC, but it's Marshall, and it's a really good win. Cam Fancher he looked okay-ish today. Marshall tended to heavily rely on the run game with Rasheen Ali, and he had a stellar game. He actually broke the game open to 24-10 with a 56-yard touchdown where he just broke right through the crease and just ran like the Red Sea split open. I think Virginia Tech, because the Virginia Tech quarterback's a freshman, isn't he?
Yeah, Chiron Drones.
Yeah, I do like what I've seen out of Drones. Obviously, there is a lot to improve on. He is a freshman, but I think that he could turn into a really good player by the time he's done playing college football. So with that being said, if you have any remarks before you say anything, everyone, please hit the like button, use the Amazon link, and subscribe to the channel. And you know what? Hit the notification bell because it builds morale, as my good buddy likes to say. It builds morale, and we all love to talk college football around here. And this guy is the smartest guy that talks college football, and very, very reliable. And while you're at it, sub to all the channels because we need to grow. We need this community to grow, and it's awesome to be part of it.
Well, it's very kind of you, Mike. I appreciate your support. Appreciate you calling. Again, congratulations on a big win for the Buckeyes and another great day of college football. And always appreciate you calling in.
Absolutely, Mark. Always a pleasure.
All right. And what looks to be the last call of the night, folks. We've got the real MVP right here at the Voice of College Football.
Hey, Mark, how you doing this evening?
I am doing just fine. You?
Well, I mean, I tell you what, Notre Dame just did Notre Dame things, Mark. I mean, do you know of a team called the Washington Generals?
Yes.
They are Notre Dame is basically the college football equivalent of that when they play big games. No matter what the score is, no matter how much time of possessions left, somehow they always lose.
It has certainly turned out that way. They had it right in their hands to change that narrative, but they let it slip away.
10 players on the most important play in Notre Dame history for what? A while?
Yeah, you could say so.
This is their first actual winnable game where people thought it could be a 50-50 game against a powerhouse team like Ohio State in quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And on the final play of the game, you have 10 players. And I was listening to the post game, and one of those guys brought up a great point. It wasn't just the players' fault. It was all the players around on defense that didn't tell the coaches. It was the coaches who didn't understand. It was the position coordinators who didn't look out and see that they had 10. It was so many people's fault, Mark. I mean, that is just a system failure. It's unexcusable.
Yeah, for as much as they work all week on this kind of stuff and, stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning and work on godly hours to figure all this stuff out, seems like they wouldn't make a mistake like that.
Right, and I was looking at it, and I mean, I thought, wait a minute. Even before it was snapped, I thought, why can't they run to the left and run it in? I thought there was some oddity. Maybe they had an extra DB or something on the field, but I mean, that's just unexcusable and bad, Mark. And speaking of bad performances today, we got to talk about the University of Southern California. What the heck is going on?
I don't know. Wouldn't
I know.
They're not going to lose this game. I just can't imagine. But with 11 minutes left, the more Arizona State hangs in this game, and USC just caused a turnover, and they are jumping around like they just won the Super Bowl. If Arizona State's playing with their fourth string quarterback. They have injuries all over the place. They beat Southern Utah by a field goal. They couldn't score 1 point against Fresno State. This is a horrible football team.
Well, this is a team that lost to Oklahoma State.
Yes.
Oklahoma State's running of one of the worst Power 5 teams in all of football, Mark.
Yes. And
Oklahoma State lost to Iowa State today.
Yes. And Arizona State lost to them by 2 touchdowns at home.
I just can't understand it, Mark. I understand people say it's the desert and all this stuff, and the humidity slightly higher in Arizona. How much does that matter, Mark?
It shouldn't. They're athletes. They train. It would just be okay. I think USC's got this thing in a sense under control because they do have the ball. They're moving. They just ripped off like a 25-yard run. But if something crazy could happen here in the last 10 minutes, wouldn't that be something else?
Yeah. I mean, this is a team in USC that I don't think has improved one bit from last year.
Well, they haven't played anybody yet, and they still haven't, but they're struggling with this horrible team. They did just score a touchdown to go up by 2 scores, so they're not.
Mark, they can win by 30 at this point. I don't care.
Yeah,
You're playing.
I get it, and that might happen. This might be one of those games where they tack on 2 more touchdowns and they win by 4 touchdowns, and it looks pretty, but we all know that they really stunk it up.
Right. I mean, this isn't a team right now in USC. I know they got Bear Alexander. They got a bunch of defensive players. Are they on the football field, Mark? Did they make the trip down to Arizona State?
I don't know what they're doing.
Is this a team that can win the national championship, go 15-0, and win the World Series? Still waiting for an explanation about that, going 15-0. My goodness, Mark. You know who might go 15-0? I'm putting a might on this, like a 0.1% chance or something, is Washington. I'm very impressed with the way Washington is playing this year.
Yes.
They are just pulverizing everybody they play.
Yeah. Pulverizing a lot of bad teams. Yes, they are.
Well, some teams can't do that, Mark, okay?
Yeah.
Some really good teams can't do that, apparently. So you got to give credit where credit is due.
This is true.
Yeah, I got to talk to you about the horrible teams because all the teams that were good have been discussed already. Did you watch any of the Boston College Louisville game?
None. 0.
Well, let me tell you, it was for Louisville, okay? Here's Boston College defense. They gave up a touchdown, end of half.
Oh, man. Really? I'm looking up this box score right now.
Boston is Jeff Hafley coached his final game there?
I don't know what to tell you. Well, they just played the game that they did against Florida State last week, though. I think they're going to see it through to the end of the year. But to your point that you made a couple weeks ago, these coaches are getting fired 3 and 4 and 5 games into the season these days. So
I get that, but Mark, I mean, these touchdowns weren't like systematic drives of 6 minutes and then 75-yard or 11 plays, 75-yard drives. I mean, it was 1 play, 75-yard touchdowns, 3 plays, 55-yard touchdown. I mean, Boston College defense, it's really bad. It might be Colorado level bad, Mark. I mean,
yeah, it looks like it. Jack Plummer went 18 for 21 for 388 yards and 5 touchdowns. And their number 1 running back, Jahar Jordan, ran 18 times for 134 yards.
Not good.
They racked up 582 yards of total offense.
Yeah, not good, Mark. And, I tried to warn, I mentioned Marshall versus Virginia Tech yesterday. Virginia Tech not only failed to not win the game, they failed to cover the spread against Marshall.
No. I know they're pathetic too. I need to start a bottom 10 list.
Yeah, and well, the ACC has tons of impressive wins at the top of their conference, like Florida State beating LSU, for example. But I mean, the bottom is just horrendous. Horrendous. I mean, it's like a Jekyll and Hyde situation. They don't have like any 8-4, 7-5 teams. They got 11-1, 10-2 team, and they got an 0-12 team potentially. I see somebody says Marshall is 4-0. I don't care what Marshall's record is. It's Marshall. You're a Power 5 team. You should beat Marshall.
Yes.
Is that too much to ask for, Mark, to beat Marshall?
No. So your ACC team to go 0-12 is obviously Virginia.
Yeah. I mean, they lost to James Madison. I think they play like a William and Mary or something like that. I'm worried about later on in the year, But outside of that, I mean, they're probably going to lose every other game. Wake Forest, I thought they were pretty decent. Nope, they lost to Georgia Tech on the road. I mean, it was a complete blowout. It was like 20-9. Wake Forest never really even had a chance of that game. How good is Georgia Tech? Probably not that good.
No.
So, just bad all around. Oh, probably should mention Kentucky Vanderbilt. Kentucky got out to a hot start, 21-0 lead.
Yep.
And then basically complete disaster you could think of happened. Turnovers, offense just couldn't work. We couldn't run the ball against Vanderbilt, which is, great signs to come in the future when we play teams like Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee. And then third quarter happened. Kentucky's athletes proved they were the better team and just,
And the Florida game's coming up next week, correct?
Yeah, it's at Kentucky. So, I mean, I think Kentucky can win because, I mean, Florida, how good is Florida really? I know they're in the top 25, but I mean, they're struggling against Charlotte at home. So,
it's a crazy year. I will say that. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I'll tell you, Kentucky better beat Florida because I'm getting worried that the breaks are just going to, it feels like we're just holding this thing up by duct tape. One issue pops up, we fix that, and 3 more issues pop up. I got a feeling this could go sideways. But anyway, Mark, that's all I got for you. Fight on to Northwestern, coming back from 21 down.
Wow.
Fight on to the Northwestern Wildcats.
Absolutely, DeReal. That is a bad, horrible loss for PJ Fleck in Minnesota, losing to that Northwestern team that basically, we know all the issues that they had this summer and what their prognosis of a season was. And now they have won a Big Ten game against Minnesota after being an underdog and defeating UNLV a couple weeks ago. Wow. Yeah, that's a bad look for Minnesota. Awful. My favorite comment of the night coming in from George Edgar, who says, let's get 100,000 subscribers by tonight. Now, I love that statement. I love that purpose, that mission. I would also love to know what the plan is behind that, but that's tremendous there, George. If you can figure out a way to get us to 100,000 subscribers tonight, that would be phenomenal. Maybe if everybody goes out there, we got 162 people here. If you all go get 100 people, that would be 16,000. Maybe you need to get you all need to get 300 people each, and we could do that. Only Talk Sports, our guy Jeffrey, who we so much appreciate. It will be impossible for me to do this, but I'm going to attempt. So if your name is not called tonight, please don't be offended, because I'm just going to name some certain people, and I need to do this more often. But we've got Buckeye Mike, we've got Jackson, we've got Jeffrey, we've got DeReal MVP, we've got Dave here all the time, we've got Mike Ford here all the time. We've got Jason, Michigan man Jason, here all the time. We've got Ralph here tonight. We've got, of course, Joey Foster. We've got all the folks that help us on the various post-game shows and the weekly shows like John D'Adamo, of course, and Tim Prangley and Tony Altamore. Of course, Michael Hogue's here tonight. So I will in no way be able to mention enough people, but Stephen Cherry, one of my favorites. Yes, I'm playing favorites. So just trying to mention a few people here. So I don't give you guys enough acclaim as I should. Let me do this real quick. Let's go to our channel and let's see who is part of our no. Hang on just a second. That's not what I should have done. Let's do it this way. And this is late night college football. There's a lot of crazy stuff still going on there. Jeffrey in particular was letting us know last night that we should be looking out for those 10:30 games. And after we got done here, sure enough, I couldn't quite stay awake. I actually fell asleep watching Boise State and San Diego State. And I kind of screwed up seeing the end of what turned out to be a really good game. Let's see here. So I would like to especially thank, by the way, once again, before I take the numbers down, that was 15-5 against the spread, and that was 17-4. And the reason those two numbers don't match up is because the Michigan-Rutgers game was a push. So 15-5 against the spread, 17-4 in 21 games, straight up money line. So check the picks out that we provide for you YouTube members or Patreon members, either one. Take your pick. You don't have to subscribe to both YouTube and Patreon. Just take your pick there. So what we're going to go with here is these are fine folks who are members here at the Voice of College Football, and you can do this as well. And again, you get my selections, and you get our Under the Radar selection from Steve Merrill, which reminds me, let's see if Steve upped his record to 16-1. What was the final score of the Appalachian State, who were they playing? Wyoming game. Final score. Oh, this is beautiful. Guess what? Steve Merrill does it again. His pick is exclusive. His Under the Radar selection is exclusive to us here at the Voice of College Football, and he did it again. The over-under for Wyoming App State was 43. Steve said, take the under. Final score, Wyoming 22, App State 19, 41. Total points scored. The over-under was 43. Wow. All right, so we've got Chris W., Roger Dodger, Lewis Papp, David, Tony, Ferris, Hummus Hero, Tim, Dave, ZZM, TF, Traveling Fools, Joe Long, DeReal MVP, Clayton, Todd, Georgia Bulldogs, Gixxer Squid, Pac-12 Pilgrim, Conference Commissioner. We've got Wet Blanket, Joey Foster, Sean, Exploring with Ben, Danko, Hawkins, Jackson, Mr. Glasper. Appreciate you. MT Orange Man, Irvin, LM, Mick, LBC Robbie, Peter, Tim Prangley, Terrell, Daniel, Timbo, Will, Kenny, Shoelace Sooner, Michigan Man, Moose, John D'Adamo, Craig, Badger and Bournemouth, Jason. We thank all of you for being subscribers here on the channel. All right, folks, I believe we've done enough damage. Our top 25 that actually makes sense will be coming out soon, as well as we're going to do conference rankings because I put all that data and all those metrics together last week, but I never produced a video. So I'll add this week's results, which include a bunch of group of 5 games. However, Ohio State, Notre Dame, of course, as well. And so we'll be looking out for those. Should I do power rankings for the conferences? I might do that as well. We might go through all the conferences and do power rankings as well. If you've got a request, please let me know. Uncle Rico was saying, Mark, we got a great ending. Well, maybe we'll stay on here. What do we got? 35-28. Let me get back to this game. All right, so USC up as Arizona State obviously just scored another touchdown. How did they keep scoring on USC's defense? All right, 35-28. Let me get my bearings on what's going on here. 7:52 left in the game. 1st and 10. USC does have the ball with a 1-score lead. So let's see what happens here. If Arizona State can turn them over, which it doesn't look like they're going to, they just gave up a 15-yard run. But if Arizona State can get the ball back and only down to touchdown, then we'll ride this one out. Let's see what happens here. So we are all tracking the USC-Arizona State game, and let's see what other games are still in progress. We've got in progress Washington leads Cal 59-32. New Mexico State leads Hawaii 17-10 in the third. And that's it. Just these three games. Cal, Washington almost over. USC, Arizona State, and Hawaii, New Mexico State. And I don't believe that game's on TV. My feed froze. What's going on here? Oh, they went to commercial break. Okay. Ferris. Mark, people are just coming online. Stay live. Oh, my word. They're just coming online. No, we're going to be done with this USC game. I've been on for 3 hours, Ferris. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for the super chat. But my goodness, I can tell when I start missing words, like I start saying things and like I can't even pronounce some words because I'm just, yeah. There we go. We've got our guy All Trust. No, if I get off the line right this second, what I'm going to do is finish watching this USC Arizona State game, and then I'm going to make the decision: do I stay up and go through the top 25 that actually makes sense, or do I wait until tomorrow and probably work on it tomorrow because I'll be toast and I have to get up at 9? I could start working on the top 25 that actually makes sense right this second while we're checking out the end of the USC game. Okay. So I actually have I'll show you guys my little grid here. See, I do keep this little grid here. I'm just not spitballing this thing. It's not letting me blow it up, however. Those are all the teams and the wins and losses and by how many points, so I can make the direct comparison. And so I make sure that I get it the way I want it. All right, USC's got a 1st and 10. Oh, man. Okay. Ball game. Forget it. Yeah, we're not going to hang with this. I understand that this is just... It would have been fun to see Arizona State challenge them, but they just can't freaking field a defense to even stop anything. And Caleb Williams just freaking threw the hell out of that pass. Goodness gracious. I think the Arizona State DB was calling for a offensive pass interference. Thank you, Ferris. Appreciate you. That was an amazing win for Ohio State. Cheers to them. See you soon. Yes. At the end of November. Yes, I know there's still 7 minutes left. But yes, so I believe I am pretty much toast at this point. So appreciate you all being here. And again, stay locked in here. We will provide the best content we possibly can. And if you have any requests, you know where to find me, MarkRogersTV at Gmail. If there's any kind of analysis that you want, we will break it down if we believe it's viable. So appreciate you all being here. Enjoy the last 7 minutes of USC and Arizona State. Top 25 that actually makes sense will be out who knows when, because I'm going to church in the morning, then I've got lunch, and then I've got a meeting. And so it could be a little bit later in the afternoon before we get that out for you all. But we will have it out, and we will see you on Sunday.